the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
That's amore.
Well.
We are.
Goodbye.
I've been insulted in all my life.
This is the hangout that is dedicated to all things Vincent. Vincent, we love you. We're going to venerate you right now. I'm just kidding. I have Catholics. I'm trying to upset them.
It's not very hard.
Vincent has been going through a hard time. And if you don't know him, he's a very cool guy. Please get to know him. He is one of the most loyal, faithful people that you'll ever meet. He is somebody that actually will...
Uh-oh.
Oh, this is lovely.
So our hostess dropped out.
Okay,
we
that's
don't
weird.
have Renee to substitute.
Yeah, well,
that's-
unless she comes back pretty soon, we're just pretty much going to be off air. Well, now that she's gone, we're on. Well, now that she's gone, we could be uncensored. Papa Booey, Howard Stern's penis, Papa Booey.
Howard Stern's penis. What the fuck?
And I remember that line from an episode of Family Guy, I think. It was actually pretty good the first 3 seasons. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very much a dead meme right now, though. I can't stand Family Guy anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
It used to be edgy and, push the envelope, but now it's just a bunch of fan service.
My dog literally jumped on the keyboard of my laptop.
That would explain it.
Vincent's
Anyway.
the type of guy who can summon your dog to kick you out of your own live stream.
No, literally, it did, and I'm like, dang it! And then some button got clicked down, and it just kept flipping through all the windows, and I was like, really?
Oh shit!
Vincent is the coolest furry I know. Granted, he's the only one I know, but that's something.
You don't know the kitty, whatever her name is, and she goes meow, and she's
I've actually never hung out with her that often. Like Vincent. From what I remember in the hangouts we were in, I did like his attitude, and I thought he was funny.
I kind of make it a point to avoid furries.
I do too. I like to say furries like ruin everything, but Vincent is like the one exception.
He is.
Yeah, he's pretty chill. Like, he always upvotes my stuff, so I got nothing against him.
I hope he doesn't take this too bad. Like, hey, Vince, you're one of the good ones. But more often than not, yeah, you are pretty much the best representative of your community that most people here know.
We like
Safely
you
put.
for a black person.
That
sounds coming out.
Oh shit!
Well, technically a fur person, but yeah.
We like you for Christian. We like you for, I don't know.
Speaking of edgy humor.
Oh, someone called me the Edgelord. Do you remember NeoCloud? We had the hat gate for him because he said hats were dishonest.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Yeah, he calls me an Edgelord, and I'm like, I'm an Edgelord? Stand back. Watch out.
You're actually pretty tame.
Hi.
Anna.
Hello.
You know what? I need to
no
start
idea what's
edgelording.
going on. Edgelording. Oh, sounds kinky.
Well, it's Edgelord, not edging.
Oh, well. Well, thanks for correcting me on that before I said something embarrassing live. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Things are a little weird.
Things are always really weird. My dog is hysterical. He's made me jump out of my own hangout.
Although I'm actually pretty pleased that Vince
Shut up.
I'm actually pretty pleased that Vince is 2/3 of the way there, like with the funding goal.
Yeah, I'm on the new desktop right now, so like all of my short keys and bookmarks and shit aren't here. So this is frustrating to try to find by hand, but Yeah, I really want this done as quickly as possible because the sooner he has all the money, the quicker he can be out of debt and just living a normal life again.
We already have a thumbs down. Yes, thumbs down us, please. Subscribe.
Don't honestly
it's the
don't
third
worry about
furry in the community.
it.
You know,
It's really not
it
worth
makes
it.
me
It's
wonder
not
who
worth
like
the
these
stress.
random single thumbs downers are.
In this case, it must be some anti-furrites.
Damn anti-fur rights.
So it's definitely not Christian anarchist.
Definitely not.
Oh,
No,
I need to make I am going to make a parody of Steven Anderson, but it'll be about furries.
I mean,
That's
we all have different roles in the church. Some of us are meant to be pastors and priests. Some of us are meant to be evangelists, and some of us are meant to appeal to those who are furries. I mean, it all works out. God has a plan.
There was a time when Christian Anderson was putting a tail on his butt.
On his butt.
On his butt.
on his butt, all up
You're
in
mu-
his butt.
He's probably the furry equivalent of the white youth pastor who tries to rap to be appealing to the urban kids at his church.
Right? He's like trying. He's like, gonna preach the word, preaching the word like a disciple.
He's appropriating
Gonna
From putting
read
on the
my Bible.
from putting on the tail. He's you know what? Fuck it. I'll say it. Christian anarchist. I was impressed by his Beastie Boys styles rap. That was pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, like if you're gonna rap, go Beastie Boys.
Exactly. Mad
Son.
props for that.
Son of a fuck! YouTube really just does not like links, does it?
I don't
No,
know
it does
what
not.
they have done, but if you have Apple devices,
There we
you
go.
are screwed.
There we go. That's not quite good, but it's better than nothing. And let's see. I think that's all I can do.
So please be aware that there are people that are imitating people, pretending to be other people. So like there's a fake One Way, and there's a fake Holy Spackle, and there's a fake, I don't know, there's a lot of fakes running around. So before you attack somebody, maybe check to see if they're fake or not.
Has that happened quite often recently? Because I've been taking like a 2-day hiatus, so honestly, I have no idea what the fuck's going on half the time.
I am definitely not in the live chat.
There's
It's-
no fake gyms yet. Just you wait,
There
Jim. There'll be a fake gym soon.
There was one when I was hanging out on MK's channel quite a bit. There was a fake Slim Jim, but he went away. I don't know where he is.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet if someone had to fake me, then that account would just be obsolete very quick after I get a new account and change my name again.
That's true. You change accounts like Shani changes sides.
You know-
I don't know why Shani is a thing. I don't know why.
Why was Honey Boo Boo a thing?
She's a funny person, okay?
Is
Oh my
it? Is she?
God, Max.
The thing is that Hannah Anderson got on my case when she's like, "Oh, why did you time her out in Drag's live chat?" I'm like, because she's let's try to be gentle. She's not a rational actor. There we go. Oh, but she's on Drag set for now.
I was a horrible human being, but
I tried not to shit on her. I'm trying not to shit on her too badly. I know she's got issues. It's just I don't like someone who is of a particular mindset that it is quite dangerous to be a friend of hers if you ever got that close. Because one minute she loves you, the next minute it's go fuck yourself, you know?
Oh, I grew up with the best friend just
like Shani?
just like her.
I was about to say, since when did you meet my mom?
Tell me a story. Tell me a story, Groovy. Tell me a best friend story. You were best friends with Shani.
Well, she hasn't talked to me since accusing me of sleeping with her baby daddy who left her right after.
Okay. That I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
I
I knew her
don't
for like
really-
10 years, and I'm like, it's me. I don't care if you don't trust him. It's-
What can we
Me.
nickname her? What should we nickname her? Regina?
Marie. No. That sounds ethnic. It wasn't ethnic. Beth. Let's call her Beth.
Okay. Well, so Beth accused you of being a whore.
With her shithead baby daddy. Yeah.
Were
There is
you a
just
whore?
no way to say sorry that would be accurate.
Just
enough.
kidding.
Well, I
Oh,
feel
by the
bad
way-
because I feel like I should have told these stories and then not mention that I feel like this friend was just like Shani because I don't know Shani. I have steered well clear of her for good reasons because I saw the signs years ago when I think she was still an atheist. I have no idea. But just toxic and oh, this is hard, Hannah. Okay.
I'd-
So-
Volatile. There we go.
We're just being very careful.
No,
Disturbed?
Like
Disturbed.
no, she wasn't disturbed. She was just volatile. Like, you had to watch your mouth in certain situations or she'd fucking explode.
In all.
It's not
Oh,
your
wait,
fault.
what? What? So Groovy and the guide of friendship, like you and I have a lot of different talks about life in general, and when do you decide to call it quits on a friend and be like, nope, this is too much?
When it's bothering me when you're not even around.
Is that
Like,
why
just
you
for-
ghosted me? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah,
Goddamn.
actually. No, that wasn't anything to do with just completely disappearing from the community and holing up in my house. I did appreciate you continuing to reach out, though. You and Gus, man. Good people.
I
Gus
decided
is
I
a
love you.
good
You're one of my
guy.
peeps.
Oh, you fucking wouldn't leave me alone. God.
So annoying.
Okay.
How dare you care about me?
She's like,
Okay.
Groovy, are you okay?
I hear you, sort of.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty better than before.
Hi, Jade.
Hi, how you doing?
Not so bad. You know, I'm just starting to get back into the swing of things after a 2-day hiatus. How are you? How's the computer?
Well, computer's still working on. I talked to Shar. I have some ideas of stuff going forward. I'll be working on that, but I've been kind of taking the week off, what with the headaches due to certain things happening in the community and my birthday. So,
Happy birthday!
yeah,
Happy
thank
birthday.
you. That was
Mine's on the
yesterday.
15th, so I'm almost there.
Another May person. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of people in May.
My mother's is
So-
tomorrow.
So that's
Poor
about
woman.
it. Yeah. Spilled
Yeah.
dinner.
You
Oh, no, you
spilled
didn't.
dinner?
I spilled dinner. I just had to clean it up. And in the process, I also managed to have something go down the wrong way. So I'm having a great evening.
Well, welcome to our warm embrace. Everything is fine now. Let's laugh.
Yeah, I know. It is kind of funny. No, but things like that happen to me. It's never like one thing. It's like a string of things.
Oh,
It
yeah.
could-
Tell me about it.
It could be because I'm rather clumsy. That could be part of it. It could be. Maybe. Just sort of. But yeah.
Don't put that on us, Jade. Just because we bump into shit and knock everything over and throw things at customers
Oh,
doesn't
that's
mean
me.
that our day is our fault.
You know, for years, it was funny. I'd have a cup of coffee and I'd put it down on the table and it would fall off. And I couldn't figure out why I kept doing that. And I finally got to the point that when I put a cup of coffee down on the table, I would reach my arm out as far as it went, put the cup of coffee down so it wouldn't fall off. Somehow, well, I do have some, I have ADHD and dyslexia, so I don't know. I guess my depth perception is sometimes off or something, because I would swear I'd put the coffee cup on the table,
Oh my god.
but it would just fall off. So,
My trouble is like forgetting that doors have doorknobs.
oh yeah.
So I'll
that's
be
good.
walking into a room and like I'll clear the door. There's obviously a door there, right? But no, smack right into that doorknob.
Yeah, me too.
I do that all the
And-
time. I thought it was just
All
me.
doors.
No,
All
no,
doors
no.
have some sort of protruding bit.
Yeah, you get these bruises at a certain level, and I used to mention sometimes it's kind of a good thing. I never like had to rush. I've been to the emergency room only a couple of times in my life for like cuts. Cut my hand open once. It was really interesting. But actually 3 times. Same hand. I swear I keep trying to cut this one thumb off. Honestly, over the years, I have all these scars with this one thumb. I did a deep cut with a knife. I was opening a can and that cut me with the lid badly. I was trying to get the lid off a bottle of hot sauce. The hot sauce broke in the middle, cut my hand open. So like where the web is, all the way down the web and all the way across. And that was actually kind of cool because I went to rinse it off and you could see everything inside my hand moving. And I called my roommate. I called my roommate for help. My roommate was a microbiologist, and she's like, "Wow, that's really cool." She grabs my thumb and starts working my hand back and forth, and we're just sitting there fascinated watching everything. And then we looked at each other and thought, maybe we should go to the hospital now.
See, nothing cool like that happens to me.
And then I almost cut the same thumb off with a mill at work. So I swear to God, there's something subconscious that I've been trying to get rid of my left thumb for years. I have to admit, it's been a few decades. It's been a few decades. I'd say for about 20 years, I was trying to cut my thumb off. But since then, subconsciously, but since then, I haven't managed to damage the poor thing.
Hey, if and when you succeed, Jade, if and when you succeed, you got to replace it with a chainsaw, like Bruce Campbell in Evil Dead.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell. It'd have to be like a mini one. Actually, you know what? Like one of those little mills might fit. You know, it has like a little saw blade on it. That might fit on my thumb better than chainsaw.
I remember, so there's a scar. When you look up my index finger, right where the knuckle is, right next to the knuckle, there's just like a line. It's because I was trying to cut the wrapper off a salami thing one time, and the knife had slid. I was trying to cut it, up so that I could slide the salami out so I can cut it more appropriately. And the knife slid over the wrapper, not even cutting the wrapper, and I just stabbed myself right in the knuckle on the side. And the knife is like in my hand on the side. So I'm like, I don't know if I should take it out. Do I leave it in? Like, what? So I'm just sitting there with like bloody salami, and I just take another knife and I'm cutting the other salami, and I'm just holding the knife with like a paper towel over it while I'm still cutting salami.
Okay.
I eventually, because it was a steak knife, I didn't want to take it out and take bits of me out with it,
Really?
Oh God.
Oh yeah. So that took a little bit of finagling to make sure bits of me didn't rip out.
Okay, you want to hear about one of the wildest accidents I've had?
Oh boy.
Okay. So I love to garden, right? I was out in my garden working, and the soil was kind of wet, and I stepped in the soil. I happened to accidentally step, and I lost my balance because my foot just went down, right? So I reached out to steady myself on my fence. And the kind of fence I had was what's called a hog wire fence. In other words, it has these large rectangles with, it's heavy-duty wire. The problem is somebody had stolen the top of my fence. I didn't know it.
Ugh.
And they unfortunately left the pointy parts up. So I reached out to grab the fence. There was no fence there, so my arm went down onto the pointy part. And unfortunately, I turned as I fell. So here I am impaled on the fence. And the weird thing was, because I turned, right, where the it kind of went all around my arm rather than through it. So the point where it came in was only a short distance away over the bump where it was almost ready to come out. And I'm standing there staring at this. And first I'm looking at amazement with the fact that somebody stole the top of my fence. Turns out they stole it to use as a cage.
What?
Yeah, they used it as a cage for. I later found out who did it. And I'm impaled on the fence. And I'm yelling for someone to come, because I thought if someone could come with a bolt cutter or wire cutter or whatever, they could cut the fence. There was nobody there. So I kept yelling and yelling, nobody there. So I finally decided, okay, I've got to do something about this. There was it was near the clothesline. So I grabbed a towel off the clothesline, I wrapped it around my arm, partly for leverage. And I said, okay, it went on this angle. So if I go this angle as I pull up, I should be able to get it off. So I grabbed onto my hand, with holding with the towel, and I turned my hand, pulled up, and yelled, and it came off. And I was like, holy crap. I then wrapped the towel around my hand and went to the emergency room. And so I'm explaining to the emergency room what happened. And the doctor said, well, you're really very lucky, because if it had gone through your hand, there's all these nerves and everything. Apparently it did nick a nerve, because my thumb was the same one I keep trying to cut off. Was numb for a couple of weeks, but it wasn't really bad. Yeah, I was okay. But the really fun part was trying to explain to work why I wasn't in, because I had the strangest excuses as to why I missed work. Not only did I impale myself on a fence, but then there was the time that that eagle got loose. Actually, it turned out to be a large red-tailed hawk, huge red-tailed hawk, got loose, and it was eating my kittens. And then there was the time that I accidentally branded my backside on a heater.
Jade,
And I
love you a lot. I seriously think we need to talk about putting you in a bubble.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I think so. Absolutely.
This
yeah,
one or two crazy stories is fine, but this is like a never-ending what the fuck story,
It really is. It really is. And
It's amazing you survived this long.
Yeah, like,
isn't it though? And the really amazing thing is, the only thing I ever broke was a toe when I was in high school, and I broke it inside my foot, so I had to have a cast. So that's it. I've, except for very strange accidents, I've managed to, not really seriously injure myself. That's the miracle part. It really is.
I've dislocated my shoulder so many times. I'm a pro at just putting that shit right back in.
Oh, that happened to me once too, playing basketball.
It happened to me once on a date.
Oh no.
Sorry, Skylar, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to rip into true empiricism in your comment section. I hope you don't mind.
Please.
Oh.
This fucking idiot just doesn't know when to stop. Like,
Hey, Skylar,
sorry.
I was gonna say, hey, Skylar, I know you just said something, but here's something that's completely irrelevant to what you said.
Pretty much. No, I just got the notification right now that he replied saying, "Oh, I'm lying," and it's like, all right, time to crack the fingers again and start typing about how this fucking trash panda is trying to talk some shit over here.
Well, I wanted to, I actually wanted to say something. I needed to apologize to some of the Christians in this room, actually, because when I was in TE's hangout, and you guys don't know how drunk I was during the hangout.
I could see it in your eyes.
Oh my God.
You were glassy as hell.
To be
Dude,
fair,
I would be drunk if I had to hang out with TE, so don't worry about that.
And Nephilim.
Oh
And
man,
Nephilim.
I'm amazed that I was even able to be coherent. But
Nephilim will be drunk enough for everybody in the room, though.
yes.
That's true.
But
They
what
knew
I
you
wanted
were
to
drunk.
say,
They were like, "You gotta debate us now."
the only reason I went in there because I was. But I want to say real quick though. But what I was gonna I wasn't sorry for being drunk in there. what I was
So
sorry
should you be?
for
Never
is
apologize.
there was a moment where I said something like, this is what happens when you go into Christians' rooms, and really that wasn't correct. Like I should have said, Fundy True Empiricism room is what I should have said. But
Brother,
there are lots of
I wanted to
Christians rooms you go in and you're not muted and mistreated and stuff like that. Anyways, I just wanted to say that. But go on.
I only got one thing to say to that.
Yeah.
Mute him.
Your morality is subjective for the reasons that they're objective, and your fallacious argument, because of course it's a fallacious argument, Skylar, because your morals are actually, objective.
Has he read anything about this stuff? Because it was
No.
really strange.
No.
No. He what he did was he listened to a few William Lane Craig debates. He recited his talking points, didn't understand those talking points, and proceeded
That's not
to get his
William
ass
Lane
kicked.
Craig. You
No.
are going way too high above their pay grade right now.
Well-
You know who they listen to? That's
That
a similar
website that we
script.
pointed out on Christmas. Remember
Yeah,
that website?
That's a similar script to Matt Slick back in the day.
Oh, maybe, because I assumed it was from Craig because he made the same kind of moral argument. If objective morality exists, if God didn't exist, then objective morality wouldn't exist. But objective morality does exist, therefore God exists. That's the same formulation of the moral argument that Craig uses. It's the weakest one, mind you, but it is the same one.
But who was repeating that nonstop? It's people like Slick, and those are the people that go trickle down to, the common funding, and they think they know what the fuck they're talking about. So don't go too high above their pay grade. You just William Lane Craig, right over their heads.
Well, I can't believe that he's honestly at this point still saying that he wasn't muting me. They weren't muting. I'm like, what? I mean, literally, my hands are in the air in one of the video clips. You can see at points I have to move. You can literally see my hands resting and me having to move to unmute.
The Nephilim even admitted that he muted you, right? Like a few times.
I don't get it. It's so strange. Like they honestly think that. What's weird to me, I guess it is projection, because they're so evil and dishonest that like they're willing to like basically blame me for faking like I'm being muted in order to get it, like to basically say I'm trying to get attention for this. Like this is what's going to make you guys look bad because I'm faking like I'm being muted in this situation.
Skylar, my boy.
I just don't. I just never. I guess I had met people this dishonest, but it's not just dishonest, but it's dumb. It's on video. Like you can see it happening. It's so mind blowing to me. I can't. And that's great. I mean, that
Christian brothers were witnesses, and they say no. So I can't believe this guy like an atheist.
Yeah.
That gave me so much material. I can make 4 or 5 of these things. These curb your empiricisms.
Curb your empiricisms, please.
So I want to clarify something real quick. You notice that True had a video, and I don't know if it's still up, but I grabbed it before I took it off. And he has the episode of one of my things where we're talking about Calvinism. Is Calvinism biblical? And he is biting off of your video, which took out of my Hangout. And so the argument was, it was like me, Preet, and Justin arguing against Christian anarchist, and somebody's crackling.
I think that's Jade.
Or eating is like crackers.
Sorry,
she must be she's having a piece of hard candy and it's boiling.
And Christian anarchist topped out early, and Veckel came in for Team Calvinist.
Mm-hmm.
And so Veckel starts quoting a passage from one of Edwards, Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and he basically says, "You think that we're going to be upset that dear old grandmother's burning in hell?" He's like, our minds and hearts will be so changed that we'll rejoice because God's justice has been sufficed, and it would be justice. So we'd be okay. We'd be happy that God's justice has been made in our. So the context of that whole thing was his defense of Calvinism, that God chooses people as elect and then ordains other people to be objects of wrath.
That's
the context of how it was used, and True doesn't seem to fail, though he doesn't understand the context. Then he grabs Justin and me and Preet arguing with him, and Justin says something like, no, God takes no joy in the suffering of the wicked, or something like that. It was a quote. Mm-hmm. And he then uses that as a way to back up what Veckel was saying. But no, that was actually a response against what Veckel was saying. So the whole little clip that he showed was very out of context, which is just fascinating to me.
He does that constantly.
Yeah, don't forget too. So what he did also, so the name of that video is "Bliss is Watching Your Grandma Burn in Hell from Heaven." But what happened was he took that video, right? And then he cut the part out where Veckel actually said the quote and just continued on. Here's the video. I'll just put the link over here if you want to see it later on.
Wait a minute.
Let's just play it. Does anyone have a way to play it through? I don't know how to do that part.
Well, let me make sure, because I might have a video where I point out that True Empiricism cuts it out. Hold on, let me see.
Wait. So wait a minute. You're telling me that True Empiricism has edited and deleted videos?
Get out now.
Get the fuck out of here.
Where is it?
This must be part of that atheist plot to destroy Christianity on YouTube that G-Man was talking about.
I must be. Because we're all, if we're not Christians, we're all atheists, just letting you know. And their brand of Christian, don't forget also.
Exactly.
Polytheists like Ocean are like super atheist.
Yeah, they're just so beyond lost, you know.
Actually, one thing
like that, he's like
theist
atheism cubed.
Atheism cubed.
Actually, I would think Ocean would be super theist because not only does he believe in God, he believes in multiple ones.
Yeah, he's just like, bring them all on. I got this.
He's like, oh, there's a Jesus. Okay, put him a little altar over there.
More theist than thou.
Well, you know, I'm thinking of switching sides because my check from the Illuminati is late.
I hate when that happens.
I know,
Same.
don't you? You know?
Jade, if you haven't switched sides by now with everything that life has thrown at you, no G-Man's going to tear you away.
I've actually thought of switching. I've actually thought of switching sides just so I could give them somebody who can competently talk about these issues.
No, you want to actually have rational discussion with irrational people? You hypocrite!
No, you
Hypocrite.
You hypocrite. Oh, Skylar, can you play that video for everybody, or no? We can't do that.
No,
I can't do it on my end.
I can do
so
it.
what you
But
need
this
to-
is now. I think I'm trying to remember. Now, this isn't the video where I point out how true empiricism does. I'm looking because I think I have. I don't know if I have it anymore or I hid that one. Because there's some at one point in my YouTubes, I tried to take the more drama. There's not a lot of drama on my YouTube channel, but I try to take the more personal and kind of ones out of here, like a lot of the Veckel ones I took down. And but I know I have the video, the original one though here. All right, hold on one second. Let me.
If you have a built-in microphone, what you can do is screen share the video.
Yeah.
And when you play it, you can have the sound coming through the built-in microphone.
Yeah, here we go. Hold on.
I
one
do
second.
not.
We're gonna screen share really quickly.
Gosh,
Let's see.
Skylar, you poor innocent man. I have so much to educate you on when it comes to tea.
Do I need to give you a mod to do this?
No. Just,
No, you can do it with the hang.
Let's see. Okay, hold on one second.
Present
share
him, though. You should
Skylar.
present him.
Just present him.
Oh, hold on.
Here, present to everyone.
Hold on. Am I presented? Do I need to do it? No. I think you have to. Oh, there we go.
Well, this is where we scream at you that if we get kicked from our own hangout, it's your fault because you're sharing. And
I
All
can't.
right. This is watching your grandma in hell from heaven. All right, let's see here.
All right, the context is Calvinists versus Arminians arguing.
Let's see here. Let's make sure the volume's loud enough.
Oh my god, a conversation with Jungle Jargon.
It's not the worst. I mean, it's not the worst thing. It's entertaining, at least.
All right, are you guys ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
The question was, why didn't God just make everything like it will be in heaven, like from the very beginning, right? That's the question. Well, the basic thing is that He given us choice, and that's what we chose. We did not choose heaven first. God gave Adam and Eve the choice to eat any tree of the garden except that one tree, which was the knowledge of good and evil. And since our first parents chose evil, or chose the knowledge of good and evil, that's why we're here. So it's not that God didn't want it to happen, but if He chose it for us, then we will not have a test at all. It wouldn't be. It wouldn't. It'd still be non-free will. It would not be our choice. It would just be.
Yeah, but that begs the. I don't know if too much begs the question, but that does leave an interesting question then, which is what the question's trying to ask. Will we then have choice in thereafter?
Yeah, and I thought I explained that we would choose God, not because we can't, but because we. Oh, not that we would choose to stay with God eternally in heaven, not because we can't choose otherwise, but because we won't, and we won't because of how things happened here in this life.
Can I just point out the beautiful Evanescence piano music in the background real quick? I just want to point out that it's
Wait,
so.
Is that actually by Evanescence?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cover, but that's the.
It's a SoundCloud cover.
Yeah, it's really good though. All right, I'm sorry. To point out how beautiful that was. Good.
How sin is
and you
Just want
don't
to say hello.
do it. Well, what's the scriptural evidence for that? I mean, because I keep hearing from the Armenian side that you know we're going to stick by the Bible, we're going to stick by the Bible. While I do agree with you wholeheartedly that we won't want to leave God's presence. However, arguing from an Armenian's perspective, I like to see what type of contextual evidence could you use to back up this claim that since we will have free will in heaven, therefore we won't want to leave. I mean, what text do you?
Well, that goes back to that God is love, and we shall be perfected.
I'm looking for a text, though. I mean, if free will is according to the way Armenians perceive it, then that means that even in heaven, that man will still have this capability of, let's say, falling from heaven and therefore losing salvation.
Unless our real choice, not genuine.
So I would like to see. I don't know. Is there any?
But that is what I mean. That is what I said that I'm not going to know. That is a paradox.
Is this pre-insane preet?
Pre-insane.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
But you don't want to miss the crux of Veckel's line because it's so rough.
Is the volume okay? Is it loud enough for too loud?
No, it's fine. By the way, for Veckel's question, I would just use 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you could bear. But when you are tempted, he will provide you a way so that you can endure it. Since no temptation can overtake you except what's common to mankind, and since there is no sin to tempt you in heaven, then it follows your free will not be in a position where it could sin. So it won't have the option of choosing where you could fall into evil because there's no temptation present.
Yeah, and I would respond with Capital Lithians 4-0 over Tampa Bay because fuck yeah. Tim, why aren't you watching the game?
Patriots are awesome.
Yeah, boy.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, that's all I came in for. I came in to gloat about Washington kicking ass, and it seems you guys are having a serious conversation, so I'll leave now.
No worries. And by the way, I'm guessing someone's a Giants fan.
Yes, fuck all of you.
Go Padres!
Saka left when we found out I'm a Giants fan.
Okay, continue.
Oh, my hit.
And again, going back to the paradox thing, see, this is why, me personally, I don't know if Matt will have a different perspective on it.
And great, I jump into the room and Tampa Bay scores. This is all your fault.
Fuck off.
Crying out loud, look at the Trinity. I mean, what man do you know has been able to explain what the Trinity is in the best manner possible? And understand it. Definitely a non-believer who rejects the supernatural is not going to be able to comprehend it. And that's why I think it's perfectly fine and logical and consistent to assert that when we see terms like God repenting or God, Jesus marveling, that it's okay to use these terms in an anthropomorphic view because we're describing these attributes of something that no human being has been able to describe successfully.
Well, when you say anthropomorphic view, right? And I'm going to jump in here really quick because I just see need. And I'm Team Arminianism. What's up? I wanted to say a couple things. One is that I do agree with you, Beckel, partially that God is not completely emotional in the sense that we are all emotions. So like when God says I'm a jealous God, I don't think that means jealous like we are jealous. When we sin in jealousy or we sin in anger, I don't think God does the same thing. I think God's different than us in that way. But yes, it does express emotions and stuff so that we can best relate to God in some way. So I kind of meet you halfway in between you and Preet on that. But I also wanted to add really quick, though, when it comes to heaven and free will, I've thought about this for a while. And I thought, if we have free will in heaven and we choose not to fall again, wouldn't that just be because we are at perfect peace and finally our will is no longer at war and we are completely aligned with God? When Jesus prays, not my will be done, but your will be done. And I believe in Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard says prayer doesn't change the will of God, but prayer changes the nature of one who prays. So this idea that our very nature now is brought into completeness, and because we are complete in Christ, why would we want to leave that?
I tend to trigger other Christians. I'm sorry.
Quick comment, and I know because other people just came in, they want to say something. Real quick, the theologian Jonathan Edwards says this. He says, can the believing husband, I'll post it on the side chat in just a second here. He says, can the believing husband in heaven be happy with his unbelieving wife in hell? Can the believing father in heaven be happy with his unbelieving children in hell? Can the loving wife in heaven be happy with her unbelieving husband in hell? I tell you, yea, such will be their sense of justice that it will increase rather than diminish their bliss. Now, at first glance, the atheist is going to hear this and they're going to be absolutely disgusted by a comment like this. But
I wonder why.
Christ, those who are of the spiritual mind, according to 1 Corinthians 2:14, we understand wholeheartedly what Jonathan Edwards is saying here. He's saying what you guys are saying right now about once we're in heaven, we're going to be in our consummate form. We're going to have the complete understanding of God's justice. So when we see things like, for instance, if the Bible doesn't say that we're going to watch people burn in hell, but if that were the case, okay, if that were the case, I'm with Jonathan Edwards 100% on this, that we're not going to be crying and watching our poor old grandmother or our kids being burned to hell because we're seeing, we're grieving over something that we care about. We're going to see justice being performed in the same way that God sees it.
So
that's why I think I agree with you 100%.
Let's take this to a human.
Let me just say this one last.
I'm with the atheist on that one. I'm sorry.
Wait, I didn't finish my statement. But go ahead.
The whole point is your statement is so off target from what the question was.
You didn't let me finish.
No, you haven't made sense for the past 10 minutes.
I mean, see, I knew this would bring up some emotional reaction out there. Yeah, but this isn't.
I wonder why.
Time before we get old, okay, well, so people. Wow.
Towards the Armenians.
Wow.
Do we have free choice how does free will play out in heaven?
Okay, but you didn't let me finish my statement. I was getting
how free will plays out.
Okay, let him wrap it up. Okay, the original topic was how does free will relate to...
All I was saying, folks, is that I was in agreement with what Deidre said and what Preet was saying. That once we're not going to have this desire to leave God because we're going to have his mind. And the reason why I brought up the hell issue is because that's another example of how I believe that we're going to have the same mind of God, that we're going to see things as he sees them.
Wait, if you have the same mind of God, that means you lose your...
if you have the same mind of God, you would be omniscient.
Yeah, but you would also lose who you are. I don't think Beckel realizes that.
I've tried explaining that to him before.
You tried explaining something to Beckel and he didn't understand it?
Oh, I tried explaining truth aptness to him once. Oh, that was fun.
Oh God.
Poor bastard.
Praise be to all of you who try.
Ask him, if somebody stubs their toe and they say ow, is what they said true or false? Or is it neither true or false? He goes, no, it's true. Oh, for God's sakes.
What?
Does it make sense to say it is true that ow? He goes,
yeah.
No, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so if someone stubs their toe and they say ow, have they said something that could be true or false? Oh no, it's true.
Oh my God! If I could remember on whose channel it is and what the name of the video is, there was one time where Joe Sonseed, God rest his faith in humanity. I'm sure it's dead by now. He went into a hangout with Beckel, Spoken, and I'm trying to remember who else. It was like a bunch of people like that.
Darwin's
he tried.
deity.
Did he? Was it Darwin's deity? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I might.
That was the most glorious hangout I've ever seen Joe Sonseed in.
Is that the one with the exercise ball?
That's my favorite one out of all of them is the exercise ball.
Are you thinking
stops and kicks them out?
And are you thinking of the fine tuning one?
Well, I'm trying to remember what they were talking about, but basically, like, Joe exposed that they can't be, skeptical and at the same time absolutist. I don't know if it was the same one. They were holding two positions simultaneously that are not mutually exclusive entirely.
That's like 90% of his talks, though.
I know. I'm just trying to remember what it was.
Because
they were basically saying,
Do you remember whose channel it was on?
That's the only thing. If it's on Ronnie's channel, it's fucking gone. If it's on...
Oh, no, it's not. There's a Ronnie archive.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
May exist. Yeah. I think you know who runs it.
There's a Shanny archive. There's a Ronnie Elk archive.
Unfortunately, I'm on my iPad, so I don't have the side chat because my other computer clearly wouldn't let me talk to you. It hates me. So I can't see the side chat. Otherwise, I'd type it in. But yeah, there's a Ronnie archive. It may be on.
Well, that's the thing. If it was on, because it might have also been on MK's thing when he was running it regularly.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Now it's like him being really like decked out in red and just playing really bad beats, and I don't.
Jesus.
He started a church.
Yeah.
He started his own church. Oh, lovely.
Yes, he did. Wait. MK.
Church of Wiggity Wiggity Whack.
I just want to say that. I just want to say, I'm the heathen here that like people say alleged Christian, but I got to tell you, like, please, if you join clergy and become a pastor or want to become a pastor, or even a deacon, please take yourself seriously and take the word seriously, and please do a examination of conscience, and please get in contact with somebody that is more spiritually ahead of you before you jump into that position, because that is a serious position. And according to the Bible, it has grievous consequences if you're leading people astray in that position.
How dare you?
For a lot of honesty right there.
Christians what to do. You're not a Christian. You're a
We're all equal in God's eyes, Spackle.
Well, I want you to know that Freddie has revealed to me that God is a cat, which is why I'm a Catholic.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because on the subject of Joe Sonseed, that is my favorite Joe moment, where he tells Matt Yester that reality is that which comports to my cat.
The guy who originally said that was Cliff Stamp. He said that to Darwin's deity. He asked him, like, "Oh, well, what is truth in your worldview?" He said, "Well, truth is just that which comports to my cat." And Dee lost his shit. He didn't know how to handle it, and then he buggered off for like 15 minutes, and then he came back. He's like, "What you're doing there is you're just playing a word game there. You're defining it that way, even though you know that that's not what I'm talking about." Like, yeah, and.
What can you do about it? Do you have an argument against it?
Is that wrong in your worldview?
Oh God!
There's
Is it wrong in a way? Do you know that it's wrong in a way that you cannot be otherwise?
That you know to be certain. That you know to be certain.
No, for a while I was downloading a bunch of old Darwin's deities hangouts because they only exist for about 15 minutes, and my program gives me like a 10-minute window of opportunity after they make it unlisted. I found out. While it's rendering, I can get the last 2 hours if I have the original watch link. But and so I was downloading his stuff, and I was just rewatching them the other day. And holy shit! It's good that he deleted those videos because his channel would have gotten flagged for hate speech.
What did he say that was hate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from what I heard, he's kind of low-key racist.
Yeah,
he's someone who gets rock hard at the idea of being able to bury people waist deep in sand and throw rocks at their heads.
He's an interesting fellow.
I have a whole string where some of the people from the Google Council were telling me people like me should be stoned, and then like Renee should be stoned, and then I showed pictures of stoning. I showed pictures of what stoning actually is, and they were like, "Yeah, yep, you deserve to be stoned." And I'm like, "What the heck is wrong with you?"
But that's the wrong kind of stoned, man. Yeah. Everybody must get stoned.
Of course, the fucking Californian would say that.
Oh, it's 2 weeks for me, and then it's legal in
Yeah,
You'd
the
be sold
aging-
recreationally.
I would.
Pastafarian.
I'm still
The
waiting to
aging-
hear it. Jesus Christ.
The aging
I have-
hippie says that.
I have tried marijuana, and all it does is get me conspiratorial, and I can't enjoy a high.
I
just
get
an
hyper
alcohol.
focused.
Hold on.
So you basically become a stereotypical stoner when you smoke weed. You just see conspiracies everywhere. And you
Yes,
have to
and I
share
don't.
it to everyone.
No, but I really don't enjoy it. I always think that something's wrong with me whenever I smoke marijuana, and I get paranoid about this shit. I think I might have a seizure or something, and I just get really nervous. It bugs me, and I get a bad trip. It's not something I enjoy
Okay,
doing.
Max, if
Okay,
you
wait.
ever come to Saskatchewan, I am totally feeding you some pot brownies.
Okay, for those of you who are wondering, in old-fashioned hippie speak, that's called getting the noids.
I don't like the noise. I do not
Noids
like
are
the
not
noise.
fun.
Never
No,
got
they're not.
paranoid. I just
So
get
I-
really productive. I'm just like, guys,
I do too.
we
but
can
I've-
get
I've-
so much done when we're high.
I've
Let's
rarely
do
had
it.
the noids, but I do remember one evening, and it can be catching, which is the worst part, where one of the people I was with had the noids, and a car went by, and the lights sort of scanned the house, and we thought the cops were coming at us. After the one person thought it, and it spread to everybody, and we found ourselves cowering on the floor because of car lights flashed the house.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, well, it wasn't such a good time, but fortunately that's the only time I had severe noids. Let's put it that way. I've had a few minor noids in my past, but yeah,
Speaking
the noids are not fun.
Speaking of noids, somebody needs to give fucking Ronnie a good bag of Kush, man. The guy needs to fucking relax.
Oh, can I say something?
Have you not seen the videos where he is evidently high?
Speaking of,
I have not.
I have not either.
Oh my gosh.
He almost makes sense.
Speaking of edibles, I just wanted to say that I actually recently did try some edibles, and guess what? All it did was make me less anxious, which was great.
Oh, that's good.
See, part of the problem with edibles is that people will eat it, and of course, it takes much longer for your body to actually get the
Like it's an hour.
So they'll eat half a brownie or something, and they'll go, "Yeah, nothing's happening." So they'll eat the
That's
rest
right.
of it.
Yeah, I
And the
know.
next thing you know, the walls are melting, and you're just sinking into the cushion.
Or you
Next
have
thing
no
you
arms
know,
and
he's
legs.
garbage can. Next thing you know, he's getting high because, like the trash panda he is, he goes through the garbage. So best place to hide it.
Well, no, hold
So
on. I
what-
wanted to tell the story about this cop who ate 24 pot brownies and thought he was dead. That's the funniest story I've ever heard. He ate
That was
24
an
pot
RCMP officer.
It was a cop, and he called in 911. And the story just makes me laugh because, okay, you ate
I
24
think they're dying. He thinks they're dead.
I think we're dead, sir. No, I think we're dead. We're not
We
breathing.
ate some brownies.
We're dead.
I
We ate
think
some
we're dead.
brownies. I think we're dead.
So the first time I ever tried an edible, I was in a lot of pain from an abscessed tooth. My best friend said, "Oh, I'll get you some special chocolate," and I said, "Okay, sure, whatever." She's like, "Just take it slow, okay?" And I was like, "Okay." Had no idea what I was doing, and then I was like, "Ooh, special chocolate." So let me eat this. I don't know, crack off a couple squares, and I just popped it in my mouth. Worst thing ever. It was like I think it was 30 milligrams, 20 milligrams, something like that, but it was all at once. And
Oh, dear.
and I spent 3 hours going, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. I'm not dying, I'm not dying,
no.
I'm not dying. And just like I threw up, and I remember like feeling like my skin was separating from my bone. Like, I don't know, like I could feel like each nerve separately. And then like the weirdest thing, because I was in pain because I had an abscessed tooth. And so instead of like relieving the pain, it did the weirdest thing. That electrical pain that was shooting through my head was like firing off one nerve at a time instead of at once.
Oh, wow.
And I just, the whole time I'm like, I'm not gonna die, I'm not gonna die. And I'm just like a mantra. And then the next time I tried it, I realized like that I'm an idiot. Like it took like 3 times the amount I was supposed to. I didn't know what I was doing. And then the next time it was just like unaffected, really chilled out, and being that I struggle with anxiety and stuff, it kind of lowered everything down and chilled it. And so I honestly think it's far less destructive than alcohol. Like I would make that argument.
Far. Well, you you always have to make sure you get the right kind too. Like sometimes it probably would have been
The
if you
right
had more.
strain also.
Yeah, like
Right
sativa.
kind,
You probably had a
right.
mental sativa thing, and it made you more like paranoid. But if you get like a indica, that's more like the the body stuff. Like it just knocks you out.
Oh, somebody
Okay,
knows their
wait.
labels.
Yeah,
I'm
stay
all-
away
Here's
from
the
pathetic.
option.
Listen, all I'm saying is I got a trip to Colorado in 2 weeks for my vacation, so I'll be in Colorado Springs
Here's how it works.
enjoying life.
Like why it's safer than alcohol. You can get the shit that makes you paranoid, in which case you don't want to leave your house, and so you're not driving high. You can get the shit that actually knocks out your body, and you just want to sit there in bed or on the couch, in which case you're not driving high. Or you can get the stuff that makes you hyper vigilant and super attentive to minute details, in which case you're going to be distracted by some obscure thing that you hadn't noticed before about the keys on your key ring, and you're
Yeah.
not going to actually make it anywhere. So
Nicola, and also you won't. Well, okay, it would take you smoking like in your own body weight to die an overdose. I mean, I'm sure you probably could overdose given the right circumstances.
I would be dead by now if that was probably possible.
But yeah, no,
But it has to be consecutive, Skylar. It has to actually accumulate your system.
Yeah, but
like
no,
the amount of
no,
THC
Joe
that would amount to a lethal dose is more than it is actually physically possible for somebody to
Yeah.
smoke.
Yeah, you just
and
gotta fall asleep.
Listen, don't give Skylar the challenge, man. He sounds up to it.
Listen, I'm trying to think like.
Oh, I already took 2 weeks off work, and like my coworkers and I, we're all just sitting around. We're just going to be smoking up that whole week. So,
Oh my god, I don't do any of that stuff. I'm fucking low key as shit. But when I go and I watch video games like at a bar, I don't know why, but I feel like having like a nice black label with me, just walking around. I don't drink the damn thing because it's not a sipping type of alcohol. That's like a shot type of thing. But I don't know. I feel so sophisticated watching, professional children play video games and having my whiskey in my hand.
we used to have a bar where I live that their main shtick that kind of like lured people in was back when Guitar Hero was relatively new, like Guitar Hero 2 came out, was it was free to play Guitar Hero at this bar. What an awful idea. What do you think happens day one? Someone
fucking break it.
smashes the guitar.
Yeah.
Yep. Day two, someone decides to use guitar as a verb and attack someone with the guitar.
Oh my god. I don't know. Shit's kind of weird. I always feel like it's a status thing. Like, you gotta have like, depending on what kind of drink you have in your hand, that's like what you're open for. Whether it's conversation, casual, serious discussion. I feel like a whiskey is a good like serious discussion drink to have in your hand.
I love my whiskey.
I have a similar thing, but it has to relate to the amount of clothing that someone is wearing. That tells me what they're open to.
Have you ever been so high you forgot that you were high? That's
No, it's called the meta high, sweetie. Meta high.
Personally, personally in terms of whiskey, I'm a huge fan of Lagavulin. Like that stuff's expensive but delicious.
Can I suggest something to folks here?
Sure.
There is a video you can find it. I've linked it before on YouTube. It's called A Child's Garden of Grass. Now, this used to be, I have it in LP. That's how far back it goes. It's absolutely hysterical, especially if you're stoned. Get stoned and listen to that record. Well, it's on YouTube now. Get stoned sometime and listen to that. It's hysterical. But like I said, it's funnier if you're stoned. It's pretty funny if you're not stoned, but if you're stoned, you will understand everything in it.
What I recommend is everybody, if you are going to get stoned with your friends or anything, with your mates, pop in a bunch of the old Jim Henson movies.
I watch Alfred Hitchcock. What the fuck are you talking about?
I love Alfred Hitchcock movies even when I'm not
Are you
stoned.
kidding? Get high and then watch the old Mario movie.
Why do you have to be on the East Coast? Damn it.
Dude, you have no idea. I have the ultimate collection. I have
me
the Alfred
too.
Hitchcock.
Strangers on the Train and freaking everything, like man, like even a Shadow of a Doubt, everything.
Yeah, I have the one with the velvet cover, so it's like, yes, I get to pet something while I get the shit like fucking anxious scares out of me,
My first Alfred Hitchcock movie is when I was a little kid. It was Saboteur. That was my first one, and that's not the most little kiddish one. Like it's the least scary.
Oh my god, I don't know. Okay,
That's
I'll
the
figure
one
it
where that's the one where he drops the guy off of the
Oh,
Statue of
okay.
Liberty.
Yeah.
And then the second one I ever watched was North by Northwest. So like I grew up watching old movies. I love Alfred Hitchcock movies. Crazy about them.
Good
In fact,
evening.
that's why I have the glasses I have, because they remind me of Strangers on the Train.
I
am a huge Hitchcock fan. Sometime we should just do an all Hitchcock hangout.
all cocks in. Huh?
I remember my mom telling me the first horror movie she ever watched was Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and I don't blame her.
God.
Birds are scary as fuck.
Oh, that part with the jump shot with the guys and his eyes are missing. Ugh.
Oh yeah. This shit was hilarious. There's oh god.
My favorite part of The Birds is you sent them. You're evil, and she slaps her. That's my favorite part ever. I'm gonna use that in a video.
I'm trying to remember that movie about the newlyweds when the wife came over to her new husband's home, and apparently she was being stalked to death by his widowed wife. I'm trying to remember the name of that movie.
Was that Young and Innocent?
What was it?
Young and Innocent, I think.
Maybe. Let me check.
I don't know.
Okay, you guys just reminded me that you need Skylar. Whoever can, you need to play this. I don't know why I find this the funniest thing, and you guys are probably gonna tell me I'm a terrible human being, but I'm willing to risk it.
Oh, Rebecca.
No.
Rebecca's a good movie.
Good.
Yeah, Rebecca's good.
Great.
Enjoyed that one.
Whoever can play that in the hangout, just please. I
Well,
beg.
with me here, Hannah, you're not the most terrible human being in the room. There's
I know, just
nothing
be
you can do. So, yeah.
It got really quiet really quick. I don't know
no,
if
I'm trying to figure out how to
that
play
might be copyrighted.
I don't. We have commentary, so it's not like
okay.
you know. Yeah, they can't take down the video.
Well, it's not like I'm monetized anyway.
Yeah.
I am
Well,
unmonetized.
I'm pretty sure that you've given enough commentary now and commentary following that clip that you wouldn't get DMCA'd for it.
As long as it's not South Park, we're okay.
It's not South Park, but it's one of my favorite. I can never find him doing stand up anymore. He's always doing like talk shows with some people I don't give a shit about. He used to be in Sex and the City. I never watched that show. Again, don't give a shit. But when he was doing stand up and it was on TV on a Comedy Central special once, I could not stop laughing. Like I actually had a hard time breathing because of this guy. And then I found some clips of his, old stand-up stuff online, and I found this, and it just reminded me how much I love that movie.
Who is it?
Mario Cantone.
Oh, okay.
Cantone, whatever it is. Play it. Play the video. I want to poison everybody.
Do you want me to do it? I can do it.
Yes.
I don't have the skills.
Hold on.
Skylar has the will. He's going to be so mad.
All right, let's see here. So,
I hope I copied it with the current timestamp. It's only like an 8-minute clip anyway, but...
Oh, you know what? Let me close that timestamp because that may...
Up, your duck's in the hangout, Skylar. I knew it, you evil atheist. It's a few seconds off. It's fine. Not a big deal.
Rewind it back. Why did they cut away from me? I'm funny as a little show. Rewind it. Oh, my favorite thing I ever did with the children? I made them recreate the schoolyard scene in Hitchcock's The Birds.
Nice.
That's a scary scene, isn't it? And they had a tribute to Hitchcock on Larry King recently. It was a repeat, all his leading ladies and his sister. And they showed that scene where the birds attacked those kids. I was like, God, why did he do this to the children? Did anybody get hurt? Why the children? Why did he do this to the children? Why the children? I'll tell you why the children. Because if you remember, as the birds are gathering on the jungle gym, The kids are in the classroom with the window open, singing that song that goes around and around. It's so repetitive. Nipple-tea, novelty, clippity, clappity, willicky, wallicky, no, no, no. I went to town to think my butt.
Right? I know.
It's like it's so on point.
Raggedy, lickety, dickety, no, no, no. My butt, crackety, sackety, lickety, tickety, fuckety, suckety, puppity, faggity, waggity, dykety, fuckety, suckety, tickety, tickety, jumpity, wobbity, fuckety, cockety, lickety, suckety, tickety, fuckety, no, no, no.
It's fucking crazy. That's it, Skyler.
Yeah, you want to see? Check this out. You want to see what True is saying here? Check this out.
Oh god, do I want to see what he's saying?
Oh gosh, what now?
The better question is, do we care what he has to say?
His comments are entertaining though. Just like
they are hilarious.
You are so far out of your lane.
And you know, like you know when he's been caught, like when he just constantly is commenting on here, like.
Are you able to zoom in a little bit because it's hard to read?
I will admit, though, Skylar, of your drunken debate that you had with True Empiricism, I probably lost about 8 minutes.
Traffic is caused by vaccines.
What?
Groovy said the
English?
Here we go. So.
Oh god, is this the one that I commented under? Oh shit.
You look at this like, why did you show evidence? You immediately put subtitles, no evidence. I just point out, like, you can literally see, where is it? Why? You can see my hands. You can literally see my hands up. You can see when I move to unmute. But then he just keeps going. And then here's Hannah jumping in here. But look at him. Where is it? Hey, Hannah, do you remember when I said I was recording the in-chat? He won't play that in-chat. I can guarantee it.
I know he is. I said that the very next line.
I don't think he actually recorded because he asked Neff to record it. So I don't know how he was recording it. And he was probably on his phone. I can guarantee you on his shit fucking phone he doesn't record it.
It's such a shame that no one else downloaded or recorded that thing. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Skylar, did you read that? I felt so bad. I'm really mean to him when he's retarded.
That's okay. Look at this. Okay, he says now you're lying. 440. He muted himself.
Oh, you just wait. I just got muted.
Look at 440. Look at my look on my face right now.
You're so drunk.
The arms aren't even moving. They're just literally laying at my sides. And at 440 claims I
Not an unfair discussion. Oh, you just wait. I just got muted again.
Yeah, see, you're not even moving.
Dude, it's such a fucking clown. Where's the part where a minute? You guys can. Anybody can watch the video. Let's not do this. You just hang out. You guys watch the video. You can see for yourself. It's freaking hilarious.
Oh my god.
Can I say something about True?
Yeah.
Okay. There's one thing that's really pissing me off that he's been repeating. He has told G-Man, you remember in the Hangout where G-Man started shouting? He's imitating the black Hebrew Israelites, apparently, and hurt my ears.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
True is now telling to G-Man and to everyone that whoever was running the Hangout deliberately increased G-Man's volume at that point in order to get him in trouble. That they set him up. G-Man
because his tone of voice meant nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. G-Man was set up by having his volume increased. And yet, if you pay attention, I was in that Hangout, nobody increased his volume. True is just making this shit up. He's a complete liar. He's just trying to justify G-Man's misbehavior, a misbehavior for which G-Man has not yet apologized properly. All of his apologies are sort of backhanded, excuses. Well, I apologize to Jade if it really happened.
I'm sorry you think I hurt you.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I know, it's just horrible. But that...
I'm sorry you're weak.
Stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, I guess I should apologize to True and G-Man and the rest of the CCP for having the measles when I was like 4 years old, and then having repeated ear infections for my entire life. Yeah, I guess sorry, guys. I didn't know that was going to bother you so much.
No, he's like the only he's one of the few people where I'm like, please shit on him. He knows well enough when he's deliberately editing things dishonestly. You can argue that G-Man doesn't know, or he's missing shit, or he's not getting an analogy. Okay, you can argue that point.
Yeah.
But the stuff that he's done, especially with like Drag's friend Lance, the marine biologist guy,
yeah,
you'd have to watch that a few times, hear for when the sentence ends. Because immediately the sentence after he says it disproves everything that Ronnie used for that clip out of context. But you'd have to wait for that breath to be taken before the next sentence. You'd have to go in and see it on the timeline. And he did that.
Well, he did the same thing with Hugh Ross and Fuzz Rana. He carefully edited that clip.
And Cy Ten Bruggencate and Matt Dillon, too.
And the other thing I was going to say is he lies about past things. He lies about the Sam thing. Sam misunderstood what he said because he was so totally incoherent. And as Fiona pointed out, he was still talking about the wrong part. I don't remember exactly what that was. You'd have to ask Fiona. So he was wrong all the way around. When he talks about the nutrients in the Amazon, he's only partially correct. He's cutting out the fact that he said they were dependent on the dust from the Sahara for like all of their, I think, phosphorus, when that's not true. It's only a tiny percentage. It is an important percentage, but it's only a tiny percentage, and not the entire rainforest, not the entire Amazon basin is dependent on that dust from the Sahara. I was actually very familiar with that. As I'm watching this go on, I'm going, oh, guys, you didn't know about that? And it's the same thing with the Down syndrome and, fusion, chromosomal fusion.
Robertsonian translocation.
Robertsonian, thank you. My mind just kind of went sideways. You'd think I'd know it, given I know Fiona. But the thing is, he's misunderstanding. It's not the Robertsonian translocation that causes the Down syndrome. It's the parent with the Robertsonian translocation.
Yeah. It's a parent with Robertsonian translocation increases the likelihood of the offspring having Down syndrome by, I think, 5%.
Yeah, I remember that because he played that video and I repeated exactly what the video said back to him. I'm like, so what did Hogtie get wrong? Hogtie was technically right because he was saying, well, no, it's not exclusive. It doesn't cause it exclusively. And he was saying, no, yes, it does. And I just said, dude, you just played the fucking educational video that I repeated it verbatim and you're telling me no?
Yeah, he won't. He edits things. He recreates history. He edits things in such a way as that he's right and everybody else is wrong. I even posted at the time. Articles about the nutrients coming from the Sahara, and they are important. It's like 1% or something, but it is an important percentage for the rainforest. But most of the rainforest nutrients come from the organic matter, that between everything that falls from the trees and the bushes and what have you, and animal fecal matter and what, various different bugs turn it into, and, various different carcasses and things like that. That's what feeds the rainforest to like 99%. And there are parts of the rainforest that don't need the dust from the Sahara. But he has to say that he was absolutely right about that and everyone else is wrong. How is everyone else wrong when they don't know about a rather obscure fact? And it's the same thing with the that particular version of abiogenesis. He goes, how come all these people don't know about that? It's the mica sheets one. Now, that's actually, it's a very obscure hypothesis, and it's promoted by only one person who is a professor at the University of California at Santa Barbara, and I've posted about that too. So it's obscure. Most people who maybe are not, we're not professionals, who are not in the field studying abiogenesis, and probably even some who aren't familiar with this very obscure hypothesis. And yet true empiricism thinks it's very important and everybody should know it. So if you don't know about this one thing, then you don't know anything.
You see, that's kind of weird, because when he talks about like whether or not something is actually relevant, what does he need? Like a survey of 8 million scientists, he said?
Yeah, he said all of them.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Every single scientist, not within that field, just all scientists in general. If you're asking a poll about like the acceptance of evolution, you're not going to ask biologists and like biochemists or anyone like that. No one in any of the related fields. You need to know what a volcanologist actually thinks.
Well,
Yeah.
and not only that, we don't have to ask every scientist in the field. All you have to do, and you can actually do this yourself, because to a certain extent I did this because I wanted to know what current books were being used in biology classes. I like to keep up with this stuff, so I will go buy the books, usually a later edition used, because the current ones are really expensive. You can go to the university sites and you can look at what's being taught in biology classes, and you will discover that every university you can find, with the possible exception of something like Liberty University, is teaching the biological theory of evolution. Wow. So if every university is teaching the biological theory of evolution, that should tell you that it's accepted by nearly all scientists, except for the handful of deluded nut jobs at Liberty University and places like that.
Most likely, Ronnie would just say, well, that's just because it's universities are liberal bastions of censorship.
Secular.
Yeah.
Liberal secular.
Yeah, you mean like Notre Dame, which has that the quote from
I wish I could find it for you, Jade. You would absolutely love it, because I once told, I had a brief discussion on my old account with true empiricism, and he asked, like, oh, where do you go to college? Oh, St. Thomas More. Like, well, that's just a secular college.
no, at Notre Dame,
St. Thomas More.
Right, St. Thomas, right. And he probably doesn't know who St. Thomas More is. No, at Notre Dame, and there's actually a picture. There's
and
actually
lawyers.
A picture of Eugenie. There's actually a picture of Eugenie Scott standing next to it. But at Notre Dame, in the life sciences, or about whatever they call it, building, in the floor, there is the quote from Theodosius Dobzhansky, who was an Orthodox Christian, that said, and I probably will get the words not quite right,
nothing in biology. No. I remember
it makes sense. Okay,
except through the light.
Then.
Sorry, except through the light of evolution. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay, because I did say I might not get the words quite right. That's in the floor at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not a secular institution.
Yeah, but they're run by Catholics, so.
Well, I was going to say it's filled with heretics and demon worshippers
and
advocates of world dominion under the Jesuits. But other than that, it's not a secular institution.
I mean, doesn't Brigham Young University also teach evolution, if I remember correctly? They might not,
Yes.
They're Mormon, but I would think they would.
Well, and so do a lot of, guess what? Protestant universities. As a matter of fact, that's been a big fuss by some people like Kent Hovind and Matt Slick and others. How dare these supposedly Christian universities teach evolution? Oh my God, we're going to hell.
I mean, T is just like, honestly, the only value he has is entertainment value. You can't believe a word he says. You can't believe, like, he's just one of those like really obvious projecting idiots. Like, have you guys noticed every time Drag back in I think that was a while ago before he started this G-Man thing, whenever Drag would make fun of him, he would copy the same insult and then have the same type of video. I'm the one that pointed that out to Drag, so then Drag started changing it up a bit, and sure enough, you see Ronnie doing the same thing.
Well, do you know what they both, I was just going to say, both Ronnie and G-Man copy people.
Oh, yeah.
Because I used the term filthy lucre in a comment to G-Man, and he's been using it ever since, except he pronounces it filthy lucracy.
And to be fair,
he stole my "you have no power over me" line, which is from the Labyrinth. And he's like, "No, I didn't steal anything from you, hun. The Holy Spirit gave it to me." I'm like, "No, David Bowie gave it to you."
I think calling Ronnie an idiot though is a little too charitable. And here's why. To say he's an idiot would mean say that he's speaking out of sheer ignorance or that he's speaking. Yeah, whereas I think he's a bullshitter. I think he's wrong. I think he knows he's wrong on a lot of things, and he doesn't care that he's wrong.
I think that bothers me. Oh, go ahead.
Because his main goal isn't to tell the truth or to care about accuracy. His main goal is to make people believe he's smart.
Yes.
And that's how he's always been. He's lied about his education. He's been called out on it multiple times. Whenever he shoots, he has shot videos in the past where he put books in the background to make people believe that he is smart. And as long as he's fooling a contingency of people, his ego is afloat. I don't think Ronnie's I think someone who's an idiot is just someone like G-Man's an idiot. Like G-Man speaks out of ignorance. I honestly don't think he cares whether or not people think he's smart. He's proud to be foolish. Whereas Ronnie, I don't think that's the case. I think he's a bullshit artist.
Yeah, what gets me most is like people who I think are even somewhat reasonable, like, and this is by CCP standards, so please don't think too highly of them. They see the dumb shit that he says that is blatantly a lie or is blatantly sexist, and they don't say anything. Oh, it's just a joke. You know how many times I've heard that?
Yeah.
Oh, T is just joking. Clearly doesn't mean.
Maybe this is my being a dude, so I don't really take as much offense at it. But what has he said that's been sexist? I'm kind of curious. I don't doubt it. I believe you. I'm just kind of curious as to what specifics there are.
Well, he's treated Mel a particular way, and I'm not going to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
But
you can just watch one of his hangouts where he's talking about Scientist Mel. The whole lot of them.
Are you talking about
they laugh at
TE
her.
or G?
TE.
Okay, TE has never treated me that way, but I'm not saying that he hasn't with other people. G-Man, I've witnessed it with a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I mean I agree to that too. But like TE, there's been a few times where I'm in my live chat or I'm in the live, having a hangout and there's a live chat, and he says some stupid shit like "Go back to the kitchen." Why are you talking? The bid boys are here speaking. You don't speak unless you're spoken to. And I time him out, right? Like, no, this is my channel. That's not fucking happening here. Then he repeats that same shit to G-Man. Oh, look what mean old Hannah did, and all these other people. And it's like, oh, see, Hannah's the real sexist because she's censoring me.
Did he call himself the big boy?
I remember. Yeah, the big boys are talking. Yeah.
He's not even marginally medium-sized.
He's also really effeminate.
And that's also why I've gone to Chicago like over 5 times and have invited him to come meet me. I'm in the South Loop. I'll give him, the address to the place I stay at. It's the same person all the time. And I've always offered to go buy him lunch or dinner. Let's just meet up and talk. He doesn't want to. He's ghosted me every single time. Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, when and where? I need details. Doesn't reply.
I think I'm more masculine than TE.
I have bigger. I have a bigger you-know-what than TE.
He could pass as a lesbian.
I do think he's a lesbian.
He could. Like, I think he's quote-unquote straight. I just think he has some feminine traits.
Yeah. I think he could really, like, if he were to go on Grindr, a lot of people would be confused. And if he were to go on Tinder, a lot of people would be confused.
It's true. I think like when I looked at him, I thought he was a female at first when I looked at that picture. And I was like, oh, no, that's TE. I was like, no way.
He could make a pretty good trap.
Oh my god.
That
really does beg the question.
He seems like he's got nice skin, except he's got the dark circles around his eyes, but
well,
raccoons are very sexual creatures, D.
I have really dark circles around my eyes, so I feel them.
Same here.
I only recently started getting dark circles, but still, that guy he's not human.
Yeah, those are very dark circles. Oh, and he's also taken up the whole, going after Doc Savage, who's a biochemist.
This is closer to how TE looks whenever he's trying to copy a video.
Developing vaccines to task because, he can't be really a PhD biochemist because he thinks water isn't a nutrient. And I have asked TE and G-Men repeatedly, and of course I get no answer for this. If you think water is a nutrient, what is the nutrient value of water? I know I'm not going to get an answer, but I keep asking just because. Water is not a nutrient. Now, there are some sites that will call water a nutrient, but that's somewhat misunderstood because water itself is not a nutrient.
I mean, I think it's a colloquial usage of it, right? Like,
that's
some educational, these educational sites are just trying to explain a concept, right? They're not really
right. Well, if you're talking like to Doc Savage, or the way I think of it, water is H2O. It's not a nutrient. However, water carries nutrients because it's a solvent. It's the universal solvent.
I was going to say, vitamin water.
Yeah, just kidding. Well, even tap water, it has various different
electrolytes.
Electrolytes. Thank you very much. It has electrolytes in it. So sure, if you're talking about tap water or, just the water we drink, it has a nutrient value because it has nutrients in it. Water itself is not a nutrient. And that's apparently beyond their comprehension.
Yeah, but according to G-Man, it is absolutely dangerous, irrespective of where you live and how well, your water filtration plant happens to be. It is absolutely terrible to drink the tap water. They are poisoning you.
And besides, what kind
and
of
yet
person...
my tap water literally comes from up the street, about a mile away from me. It used to come across the street from me, and it comes from this nice creek that runs down from the redwood-filled mountains. It's excellent water. Now, if you look at it, I've posted the link where you can look up what's in your water here in the United States. You can, actually put in your zip code and look up what your water is like and what's in it. And sometimes it looks a little bit scary until you sort of click on the little boxes to see what that means. So in my water, yes, there are, of course, it's treated with chlorine because nobody in their right mind is not going to treat water with chlorine because there are microorganisms in water that are freaking deadly, even in nice, wonderful water that comes from down from the mountains, because you can find things like Giardia in it. So, of course, you treat it with chlorine, and so there are going to be some chlorine byproducts, but they're very tiny. The part that I get a kick out of my water is it's got some radioactive elements, including uranium in it. But it's very tiny. And you know what? These are natural because as the water filters through the mountains, it picks up a few of these elements. And it just so happens our mountains have some radioactive elements in it.
Yeah.
I just want to make something very clear. Neither Freddie, I've lived here for like 30 years, and I have not yet begun to glow in the dark. So I think I'm okay.
Or develop superpowers.
To be fair to true empiricism, this is an accusation that's very serious. I mean, who would lie about having a degree in biochemistry? What kind of terrible person would do that? You'd have to be the worst kind of person to lie about having a biochemistry degree. It's the worst thing anyone could do ever.
Or an organic chemistry degree. Seriously.
I mean, you know what? If you found chemistry so easy that you just decided to drop the class too.
Oh my god.
Well, if you found chemistry so easy you decided to drop the class, you might know how the periodic table works, which apparently he still doesn't.
Listen, I know he might not understand that, but at least he got an A in calculus.
Oh, that's true. Whatever that is.
He puts the A in calculus. So.
Well, although I think he left off an S. I think, his bad spelling. I think there should have been another S at the end.
I'm sorry, I was trying to choke on my words, but I couldn't do all that.
I remember taking a philosophy course that was so easy to me because I studied all the material already. I was pretty bored too. I still stayed in the class because I realized, hey, it's an easy A. Why not stay in it? I didn't think to myself, hey, why not fuck myself over by dropping this easy class?
Irrespective, you're still getting the credit. It works towards your degree. Why wouldn't you stick with it?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I've had classes like that too, and of course you stay in them because it's an easy grade. It's like, how cool is this? I'm gonna ace this, and now my grade point average is gonna look terrific. Nothing like an easy A.
I took a detective fiction class last semester that I got an A- in, despite reading like half the books in that class. And the books that I barely did read, I was able to get like an A on the essay, well, an A minus on the essay, because I could connect its more philosophical tenets to something. I'm like, I'll read this book from a Nietzschean perspective, or I'll read this book from a postmodernist perspective, and I got good grades. It was that simple. You don't ditch those classes. They're good credit classes.
Yeah.
Unless you're lying.
Exactly.
Because I have no degree, but I have a lot of units. I have no idea how many units I have because I've been to 5, 6 different colleges, something like that. Because wherever I went, I continued to take classes. And sometimes I took classes over because I forgot stuff. I've had calculus twice. I've had astronomy 3 times, but that's because astronomy kept changing. I had astronomy for like 5 years in between, like 1968, then 1970 something, and then 1980 something. So because astronomy kept changing, that was kind of fun. And I've had biology more than once because, well, it kind of changed too. I've had chemistry more than once, although it didn't quite change. I just figured I'll just take it over. Easy A. That was real easy to get an A in. But yeah, why not? Why not go for the easy courses?
I mean, heck, sometimes you deliberately choose to take the courses that you think that you're going to be good at and that are going to be easy just so you get the credits. That's why I took one of the courses that I took was philosophy and film.
Nice.
That is an easy credit. I'll just put that out there.
An easy credit for me was a class I took this semester on social justice. I actually got an A+ on that one.
Yeah. I did take gender studies just so that I could like just an intro to gender studies and gender philosophy. It's an interesting subject, and I wanted everyone should actually like learn something about it, not necessarily go out and take a class. But what was fun about it was the reaction that everybody got when I walked into the room, and I realized I was the only person in there with a penis
that you knew of.
Yeah, and then it's just like they all just glared at me with like suspicious and accusatory eyes. And then the best bit was their reactions when my boyfriend picked me up from school. So
they were probably like, "Damn it! I knew it was too good to be true."
He's just here to try to get in her pants. No.
Yeah.
Wouldn't make sense that I would try to meet women if I were straight in a class where their defenses would be up. So,
well, in the old days, see, I don't know how it is now, but if you go back, 30, 40 years, it was not that uncommon for young men to take women's studies classes to meet women because they knew that these women were likely free thinkers about things like sex rather than being really uptight and saying, no, not until marriage. So, but back then it was actually, we wanted guys to come into women's studies classes. I think it's changed. I think the attitudes have changed now.
So what you're saying is the sexual revolution is basically to blame for the stereotype that I suffered.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, because we wanted guys to take, and there were a couple of reasons. First of all, we wanted the male point of view, but some women wanted men to take women's studies classes because they figured they could convert them. But whatever, it used to be, you would try to get guys to take women's studies classes. They were an important part of the curriculum. You didn't want it to be all women. And of course, some guys were like, cool, I'm going to be in there with a bunch of loose women. Of course, that wasn't what was true, but...
That means something very different to anybody from the UK.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, there's a TV show called Loose Women, and it's kind of like The View.
Oh no!
I don't know what it means in the UK, but here loose means easy, like gonna put out sexually.
Yeah. It means the same thing in the UK.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting. But yeah, it was also, by the way, fairly easy grade sometimes for men and women's studies courses because sometimes the women that were teaching it felt, poor fellas, they don't understand. We'll just give them a good grade.
The bigotry of low expectations.
I know, isn't it great? But I mean, it's funny because I used to know someone who taught women's studies, and of course, being active, very active in the second wave of feminism, you know, I took some courses. I knew people taking courses, and it was always really interesting. People go, I took my second course in women's literature, and guess what? There's like 2 guys in it. How exciting is that? You know, and I guess nowadays it's like, what are you guys doing here? This is our space.
Yeah. One of the modes of feminist thought that I actually was surprised existed was one influenced and maintained by John Paul II. Apparently, there's been a kind of way of appropriating feminist thought in the Catholic Church, which I was not aware of until recently.
Well, it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, there was a time when Marxist thought was incorporated into the Catholic Church. Some, because everything and any like philosophical discipline, or I don't know if you call feminism a philosophical discipline, but you know, whenever ideas come out, there are always some good things, even with bad things. You know, I mean, even Marxism has even been used to a certain extent in biology. When you look at, oh, go ahead.
Oh, like from what I understand, Catholic social teaching was a reaction to Marxist thought, as well as capitalist thought as well. From reading some of the works of Luigi Tapparelli, who was the guy who pushed for social justice in the Catholic circle, he attacked both Marxism, socialism, and capitalism as being revolutionary Enlightenment thoughts that were based around skepticism, and he pushed for a return on Aquinas. He tried to push like a third way where he agreed with the socialists that bosses, employers, landowners, they had a duty to their employees to provide them the common good. That means a salary that was essential to feeding someone's family, time enough that they could go to church, have some of their spiritual renewal, so they wouldn't be in constant competition with each other like under capitalism. But they also agreed that people were not supposed to be economically equal. A hierarchy is a natural thing, and of course, there should be some kind of hierarchy that serves as a function, contrary to the egalitarianism that permeated socialist thought. So I would say that in terms of the influence, it was taken not because of an embrace, but it was reactionary to it.
Yeah, well, of course, I'm thinking more along lines of liberation theology.
Yeah, that was kind of condemned, though, under John Paul II, funny enough. But, like, even though that trend was there at a time, it wasn't something that was taken into the mainstream. It was something that was experimented with and ultimately rejected.
Right, but it still had an effect on the church.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right, because the church had to respond to it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Now, that's basically what I mean, is even when you have something like that. I remember the heyday of liberation theology. And it was a pretty exciting time, actually, because this was something new. But yeah, the church, there was even a movie about it that I can't think of the name now. But I think it stars...
I remember. Is it about... Oh,
I may be wrong. Go ahead.
No, I think I know the one you're speaking of. It's the one about the bishop in South America who was shot.
Yeah, that may be it. I don't. I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the feminist thought within the Catholic Church is interesting in that it attacks other schools of feminism, and that ultimately their understanding of equality between the sexes entails a rejection of femininity. Like liberal feminism aims at making men and women equal by making sure men and women take up the same economic positions. Or Marxist feminism, how it entails that because men and women are supposed to be as equal and as free in society to do their own thing, they're against the traditional institutions that actually distinguish them as male and female. And of course, their understanding is the best way to make sure both of them are equal is to respect both their dignity equally as well. Through traditional institutions, like that was kind of how that mode of feminism tried to argue.
Yeah, well, I think the equality that we used to fight for was just equality of opportunity. It didn't mean that you had to have an equal number of firefighters being female. It just meant that being a firefighter should be open to women, using the same standards, but those standards had to be reasonable. Because at one time, the standards for firefighters were so strict, it kept a lot of men who would also have been excellent as firefighters. But, of course, it kept out most women. So what they did, and this started in a few places, and largely because of feminist insistence, is they analyzed their standards for firefighters. Do we have to have these? Do you have to carry a 185-pound man down a ladder? How often does someone actually do that? How often does someone actually need to be able to do that? Is that a reasonable standard for a firefighter? It was discovered that no, it's not a reasonable standard for a firefighter. So that was thrown out. So again, it's like, and it's the same thing with the Army. If you're going to have special forces, there are reasons for certain standards. And if a man or a woman can match those reasons, then they should be accepted, as long as they're reasonable. It's the same thing with everything else. There are things that women are not. I mean, women are physically not going to be able to play football for the most part because they're not built that way. Women are probably not going to be able to play against men in basketball because they're not built that way. But should a woman be able to, she should be allowed that opportunity. And that's all that we really cared about, was the
that's kind of where I am, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't demand to be able to work something that I can't meet the standards for, but if I can, I want the ability to. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the important part. Now, unfortunately, there are always people that take things too far, and boy, could I tell you stories, but I'm not gonna. To the point,
like how all sex is rape.
Well, that's even far beyond. But yeah,
that's just ridiculous.
There are women, even back in my day, who considered any form of penetration to be well, I wouldn't say rape. I can't remember the term they used, but it's kind of like a violation. To penetrate the body is to violate the body. So any kind of penetration is wrong. Which
even if a woman penetrated herself.
Yes.
Oh wow! Yes. Like I've heard of penis and vagina being a form of rape, but even.
Yeah, so a woman penetrating herself using a device like a dildo or a strap-on, using fingers, using a tongue, any kind of penetration is wrong because that's a violation of that person's body. Now that's incredibly insane as far as I'm concerned.
That's so ridiculous. That's just like a fundamentalist, religious person. Like,
oh, it is, and there are what I would call fundamentalist feminists, and some of them are TERFs, some of them are not. I don't know if you know the term TERF.
Trans-exclusionary feminists.
No, yeah, trans-exclusionary feminists. Trans-exclusionary radical feminists.
Yeah.
These are feminists who will not accept trans women at all.
So
they think that they're just men in disguise, and believe me, I actually ran into those years ago.
I have some pretty I don't know, with transsexual and women's rights, I have such mixed feelings on it, because there are experiences that women have that fundamentally, not by choice, but fundamentally a trans man will never have. There are some experiences.
Let me find it for you. There was recently an article about that, about how trans women can't really relate to what's that TV series? The Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading the book. I haven't seen the series yet. Because trans women do not have those experiences. And this was written by someone who's trans. And I think that's an important dialogue to have. That yes,
it's very politically incorrect. You get jumped on. I've tried to have that dialogue. You get jumped on so hard.
I don't care. People need to fucking grow up. And I'm a feminist. I've been a feminist for 40 some years. And to not be able to have that dialogue is wrong. To not be able to have any dialogue, to me, is wrong. You can disagree with someone, but if you try to shut them down, that's wrong. One of the reasons I object to some of the stuff that's going on now at some colleges, it's not at all colleges, because back in the day, what we would do is we'd say, yeah, invite the stupid son of a bitch to speak. And then we're going to study him or her. We're going to study their works. We're going to have workshops where we get together and we discuss their works, and we do a bit of, role playing. So then when they come to speak, we're loaded for bear. And I don't mean yelling and shouting and telling them they're horrible people or whatever. I mean going after them, philosophically, arguing their points. Saying, okay, where's your data for that? Well, how do you come to that conclusion? Because we know this. That's what you should do. Not have some demonstration outside. Say, well, we don't want so-and-so to speak because so-and-so says stuff we don't like. No, you confront them, but you confront them with knowledge and you confront them with, reason rather than just cutting them out. That doesn't do anybody any good. All it does is it makes them famous. It sometimes makes stupid ideas popular.
One counter-protest idea that I really liked was at a university when Ann Coulter came to speak. I believe a liberal student group offered for every ticket that was bought to see Ann Coulter, they would donate the same amount of money to some liberal charity.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to fight it.
Yeah,
one of the things I really dislike about the current movement of those who are dubbed social justice warriors is by just appearing there, drowning people out, you're just feeding into their narrative about themselves. I mean,
oh yeah.
When people say conservative voices are oppressed on campus, and you go on speaking over them, interrupting dialogue, you're kind of feeding into their narrative.
I agree.
Yeah.
You're giving them exactly what they want.
Yeah,
I feel the same way about people who approach, the CCP and people like them, and they go in the comments section and call them names. That just gives them more fuel for their persecution porn parties. We're being mistreated by the awful atheists, even if it isn't atheists that are actually doing it. It doesn't make any difference. It becomes atheists. It's
atheist
say, Ronnie, you're stupid. We know Ronnie's stupid. You don't need to tell us. And again, that just feeds into their narrative.
Yeah, to those kinds of radical evangelicals, atheist is just a term for anyone who actually doesn't hold to their particular idea of God.
Yeah, that's true.
So they will, in some settings, if you press them on it, will say that Catholics are atheists.
Oh, yeah.
Muslims are atheists. So welcome to the dark side, Jade.
I know, really. Actually, I've been here before, so that's okay. I like it here. It's warm and comfy in the dark side, honestly. I think it's the fires of hell, but I don't know. But yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, most likely.
Grandma?
Wait, what?
Oh, I said hi, Veckles' grandma.
Yeah, really.
Oh.
Hey, if I was Veckles' grandma, I'd be slapping some sense into that boy.
You know what? This might sound a bit much, but in some, Beckel isn't completely off about his point there. And what I mean is, the point he was trying to make, even though it wasn't pertinent to the conversation, which I grant, or wasn't really defended that well, has been defended not just by Jonathan Edwards, but also by St. Augustine of Hippo and by St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, I quote Aquinas right after that, and I hate that Aquinas quote. I think it's awful.
I think the way of understanding it, though, isn't a joyfulness or a gleefulness in the sense of happiness.
It's just a sense of understanding.
Exactly. It's in the sense of when, I don't lose any sleep when let's say a serial killer goes to the death penalty, one might disagree with the application of that sort of punishment. But no one ever really loses any sleep over it. They might not agree, but they at least understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when people are punished for their crime.
Picture your mom in hell for a minute.
Yeah. I mean,
and then read it St. Augustine, and then picture your mom in hell for a minute and read it St. Augustine, and Aquinas, and Edward.
Right. Okay. And in response to that, what I'd say is, I could imagine if my mom committed a heinous act of evil, where
no, she didn't. She didn't commit a heinous act. She told a white lie.
Let me finish. And of course, I would be upset. I'd have a lot of emotional reaction to the punishment she has, because despite what she has committed, I still love her, and yet I understand why she would be deserving of the punishment. And in terms of
that you understand it and that you recognize it as just doesn't mean you have to like it.
Exactly. Exactly. And likewise, any kind of punishment, any kind of evil as an affront to God is a heinous evil. It's not because of the act itself, it's because of the dignity of whom you're transgressing against. It's not a matter of the time it takes to tell it. I mean, remember that kid who sexually assaulted that girl behind the alley? What was his name? Brock Turner. His dad says, does he really deserve 3 weeks of punishment for doing something for 13 minutes? Well, the point isn't how long he took to assault that girl. It's the fact that he assaulted the dignity of a human person who as a human being, has a lot of value for us.
I thought you were a virtue ethicist.
Why are you
going all Kantian on me now?
Honestly, I have taken a liking to Kantian ethics, and to be fair, Kant actually has a very robust notion of virtue. He
does. He has the doctrine of virtue, which was neglected for a long time.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to be reading that in the fall. So
nice. I've lately been on a deontology kick, I'll be honest, and I really do like Kantian ethics. I just like the ability to approach morality from, a geometrical
rigid
method.
Kind of way.
Honestly, if you look at his imperfect duties, though, they're not too rigid, especially compared to the consequentialists. Like, for him, beneficence or donating money is something that's done on a personal level. It's not something that's obliged to do, but it's something you do to build your own virtue and character. Whereas for consequentialists, if you read somebody like Peter Singer, they ask you to give a lot to it until it hurts.
I would recommend instead reading Derek Parfit, where he actually, as a better counterexample, is Derek Parfit actually suggests that how would we go about encouraging people to give more than they already do? Because what we all recognize is when we ask the question, how much should we give, we can't put an actual round sum of money about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can say is we can give more than we already do.
Right.
And so what Derek Parfit's idea was, whenever somebody graduates from university, you have them all sign this contract to basically tithe away a certain percentage of their subsequent incomes that they'll get in the future. And they can opt out of this at any point, but the second they opt out, a newsletter is released to everyone else who signed the contract saying this person has opted out for these reasons. And so it is kind of like moral blackmail at that point.
Well, I would assume that would come into play after they paid off their student loans.
No.
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 Now, see, that I wouldn't agree with.
But also a different student loan structure in the UK for Derek Parfit.
Okay, that might be true. Although I will say I would go for this.
He was a firm advocate for a free universal post-secondary education.
Okay.
So
I am too. But I was going to say
not.
I would advocate.
You elitist fuck.
Read. Okay, sorry, Jade. I'll recommend reading
say this quickly. I would advocate, however, for someone giving their time instead of money. Because if you're, if you're a struggling student, or if you've just graduated, you have all these student loans, it'd be very difficult for you to pay anything. On the other hand, what would it take to, volunteer at a homeless shelter or something else?
Well, specifically in Parfit's case, he's talking about the third world. Like, what can we in these developed countries do for the third world? And we already know that the actual best thing that we can do, it isn't to send like canned goods, and it isn't to send them these gift baskets and stuff that you do in elementary school and all that. It's to send money so that they can get the things that they need. If, of course, like the charity that you're giving the money to doesn't end up in the hands of some warlord. But
yeah, well, I would also say that's not always true, because they have to have goods, because there aren't, in many third world countries, the goods aren't available to be bought. And I would say that also goes for, say, medical supplies. So, sending medical supplies to these countries would be something that would be very necessary.
Yeah.
And if all you could do to spend your time would be to go down and help pack the medical supplies, help put them in decontainers and on pallets and strap them and get them ready to go, that would be something that would be positive that someone could do.
You would probably accept that as well, but like specifically, it would be like you would give money to like Doctors Without Borders, so that they go there and they give them the medical supplies, and they you give them directly to the foundations that give them the goods, or give them the money directly. Is his idea.
Now that you've mentioned that, I have a birthday fundraiser going on Facebook. If anybody wants to know about it, please let me know. I'm trying to raise $200 for Doctors Without Borders. I think we're at $160 now. So, nice. Anybody wants to donate, let me know. I'll give you a link to my Facebook for Doctors Without Borders.
It's funny that you mentioned them. I actually by the way, a book I would say is really good on making a case for abolishing the funding of post-secondary education, which is what I'm for, is called The Case Against Education by an economist known as Bryan Caplan. He lays out a pretty strong case against it. Pretty much.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Bryan Caplan runs a for-profit college. He can go fuck himself.
Well, he's a professor at George Mason. First off, he's a professor at George Mason, so he has
cool story, bro.
It's a true story, but whatever. Second, you're attacking.
I believe you, but that doesn't mean that he isn't going to personally profit from the defunding of secondary education. So I don't buy
that he'll also profit from the funding of post-secondary education doesn't mean that his points are invalid either. So
exactly. Exactly. I could just say, well, Parfit himself, as a university professor, would profit from this because he'd just have a permanent flow of students coming in.
Well, no, because he's dead now, but.
Well, I mean, at the time when he was advocating for it, exactly, and not only that, but even in the book, Caplan actually argues against how new technologies and education online is going to overtake traditional education systems. One of which he runs. He is actually very pessimistic about any technology taking over. So. He's
really?
Not somebody.
That's an extremely dangerous view to take. It's a naive view to take, given history in general.
Well, I mean, consider this: people have been advocating that newer technologies are just going to abolish traditional ways of teaching, and that's been going back since the 70s, making the same argument. And you had the same means of doing so. You had cassettes of lectures that people could watch, rewatch. In fact, my university even had that kind of old system back before the internet. I remember my cousin taking them, and yet that didn't do too much in overtaking anything. And yet, just because we have a faster means and mode of doing it, hasn't really changed anything about how the modern education system works. And besides,
on a atheist Google Hangout one day, what exactly you mean by being an actual Christian?
Why am I hearing that?
No.
Listen, he's saying that Jade is not a Christian. He's attacking her right now.
Oh, goody. Well, I'll catch up later.
Oh, boy. Same shit, different day, different year. Same shit, different year.
Can I say something about that? Because G-Man
Sure.
has made the point that I haven't defended myself, that other people have been defending me. The reason I haven't defended myself is because I don't think G-Man is worth responding to.
Well, except for the fact that you went on the Geek Room.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, I haven't made a video. That's what he means. He meant, I haven't made a video defending
Why
myself.
would you have to make a video? You were in the room with him, and he.
G and logic, don't question it.
Yeah, well, I mean, defending myself against the homosexuality allegations. And of course, one of the funniest things I still giggle when I think about it, that needs to be on the soundboard, I think, or something, or at least something where I can click and listen to it occasionally, where he is saying that he finally got me to admit that I'm a lesbian.
Give me a timestamp.
I'll look for it.
Give me a link and a timestamp.
So I will. Did you see the timestamp I gave you?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I have a laundry list. I have a laundry list of stuff.
So
I
he's
need to
live
update.
right now.
Oh, no.
Now back to attacking Jade because he's a creep. So,
I
real
don't
quick,
care.
Jade, I'm gonna give you a little short inquisition here. I just want to see.
You may give me an inquisition.
I'm gonna.
As long as it doesn't
you
involve
heretic?
thumb screws, I like my thumbs, especially the one that I've been trying to cut off for years. So go ahead.
Now,
you
question. Deirdre,
Huh?
question. Is your chief weapon surprise, fear and surprise? Your two weapons, fear and surprise. Your
Yeah,
three weapons, fear,
that-
surprise, and...
No, one of my biggest weapons is the soft. What is it? The soft pillows or the yeah.
Don't make me bring out the breast remover.
Oh yeah. Oh dear God, you'd be here weeks cutting these things off.
Ha ha ha. Ha,
Okay.
Seriously. That
Okay,
would be a
so-
challenge you wouldn't want.
So Jade, we're gonna make sure you're a real Christian. So, the deity of Christ is Jesus. Is Jesus part of the Trinity, and the deity of Christ, is he Lord? Is he part of the Godhead?
Yes, Jesus is God. Jesus is part of the Trinity.
Do you
Okay.
believe that Jesus died for your sins?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Do you believe that if without God's salvation, you're separated with God?
Yes.
From God? Okay.
Do you pray to
Yes.
statues of Mary?
No, I don't.
Do you believe that salvation is through Christ alone?
Yes. And you're missing the big one. Come on, there's a big one here.
Do you believe in the resurrection of Christ?
Yes, that's not the one. What's the one that they always attack Catholics with? Come on, come on, come on.
Is it the one that you're praying to Mary?
No, it's not that one. I don't pray to
Do
Mary.
you own any statues of Mary?
Actually, I do not.
That's
The
surprising
one
because
that
I
they already
do.
always attack Catholics with. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I should know because I grilled.
Oh, is it? Oh, hang on. Is it work salvation?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's why I said the salvation through Jesus Christ alone. I figured that encompassed it.
No. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, well, but it's the works thing that they always go after.
Right. So, do you believe in that you work together with God, working towards your salvation, or like how sometimes Orthodox churches say that you work out your salvation daily? Or do you believe that grace is paid at all, and that it's all regeneration through?
Well, I believe
God.
that we are saved by grace alone, but however, grace without works is dead, as the Bible clearly says.
Now, do you believe you can fly? Do you believe you can touch the sky?
Actually, yes, I do.
You
I can
believe
go
it?
down to the airport here and get in an airplane or a lightweight, and I can go fly and touch the sky. Yes.
And do you dream about it night and day?
What? What was
Do you
that?
dream about it night and day?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Do you dream about it every night and day?
No, actually, I don't. No.
You do know this is a song, right? Just making sure.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
How would you explain the gospel in a few short sentences?
Love God and love one another.
Oh. Awesome. Let's see. Any others? Do you believe Christ is both fully man and fully God?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Is there something that your faith has tugged you not to do, something that you ought not to do, and it's because of faith convicting you?
Lots of things. I don't think there's a specific thing. Every day my faith tells me not to do things. My faith tells me not to call people the names I'd like to call them. My faith tells me not to lose my temper. I mean, there are daily challenges, and there are challenges you meet when you come upon them. I think my daily challenges are, the little ones that get at all of us. Pride, anger. I don't really have a problem with hatred. I don't think I've ever had hatred in my heart or ever really understood that. Envy and jealousy, not much, but they do pop their ugly heads. I mean, we can go through the 7 deadly sins here. Sloth. Oh yeah, that one. It's so nice to just sit in bed.
So cute.
I know they are, aren't they? But
except for wet sloths. Wet sloths are terrifying.
Yes, that we really, but you have to draw the line somewhere, don't you, Cliff? There's only so many sloths one can feed and take care of. So but it's so nice to just sometimes sit and watch videos all day and not do anything. So yeah, sloth's a problem. Am I missing any of the 7 deadly sins here?
I mean, the 7 deadly sins aren't even in the Bible. It's just
I know, but they're just guidelines. They're just guidelines.
But like, let's skip that and go more positive. What fruit of the spirit do you feel like you struggle the most with? That you have a lot of work to go, and what fruit of the spirit do you feel like maybe you have a natural inclination for, or maybe more growth in?
Well,
I can tell you,
patience.
for me, peace for me is kind of, I struggle with that.
Patience. I try to be patient. I try to be kind. Being kind comes naturally to me, but my temper sure as heck gets in the way sometimes. I have to bite my tongue a lot. I'm surprised I still have one. But yes, I do struggle with patience and understanding. I'm not the best person in the world at understanding people at certain social interactions. So I work at that. I work at trying to understand people's motivations, not assuming them. That's a line that's sometimes difficult to draw. To try to understand someone's motivations, but not to assume it. Not to assume that they're doing something because of X, Y, and Z, but just to understand that there are certain possibilities, that someone may be cruel in your estimation, and yet there may be some reason for it. Someone may be angry, and yet there might be some reason for it. So to try to have some patience and understanding, and not jump to conclusions about people. It can be very difficult. As I said, I'm not the most socially apt person in the world, and I do work on that. And I also try frequently to have an examination of conscience, and to think about what I have done. I try to do it every day, but sometimes I watch a video instead. To have an examination of conscience and to think about, what did I do that day? What were my interactions with other people? How could I have been a better person? How could I have been a better friend? How could I have, did I say things I shouldn't have said? And sometimes more importantly, did I omit saying things that I should have said or things I should have done? I think I think we all have problems with sins of omission and sins of commission. But it's the sins of omission that bother me the most. The times when I should have, at least in my opinion, said something or done something that I didn't do. The times that I let a cruelty go by, for example, and didn't do anything about it. Not say anything to the person who committed it, or not say anything to the person who was the subject of it, the person possibly harmed by it. I know some people let things roll off their backs, but should I just automatically assume that they let things roll off their back? because they say so? Or should I, go to someone privately and say, hey, I think what so-and-so said really wasn't fair, or whatever. These are social interactions that I struggle with. And I may not say things when I should, and I may say things when I shouldn't. And those are things I try to balance and try to reflect on and try to be better about. So I guess that's about it.
A laudable goals.
Mm-hmm.
And if I err, I would like someone to come to me and tell me. I'm not going to jump down your throat. I'm not that sort of person. But I sometimes get my back up for things. But I know that when I get my back up, it'll go away pretty soon. It just it's like an automatic reaction. So if someone comes to me with something, I may not, take it on board right away, but I certainly will think about it. So if you see me doing something, if you see me let a cruelty go by, if you see me say something untoward, please let me know. I may disagree with you, but I will take it on it.
I always looked at faith as something that you don't just preach and say that, yeah, I believe. And not as something like, let's be polite, and Christianese. Let's speak Christianese and not swear and don't smoke, don't chew, don't hang with those that do. But I mean, real Christianity to me always really struck me as somebody that is willing to love people in a practical way.
Well, I've always been fond of that saying, which was attributed to St. Francis of Assisi, but everyone's pretty sure he didn't say it. However, one of his associates said something similar. So I still say it comes from St. Francis because I want to, which is preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. In other words, we should be living our lives according to the gospel rather than just talking about it. We should let people see the fruits of the Spirit. You can go out and stand on street corners and scream at people, and I don't think that does any good. The only people that I think are going to convert are the people who are on the path already to conversion. I think it's by trying to be a good person and to let other people know that, Christianity isn't people screaming on corners. Christianity isn't people being hateful and pride-filled. Certainly, we're all going to struggle with things like that because we're human. But that being a Christian is a way of life. And it's heeding those two great commandments, to love God and to love others. But you can't love others. You can't love God unless you love others. We are all made in the image of God, and you degrade that image when you mistreat others. So...
Which is probably why you are so vehemently against the likes of G-Man.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Max?
Actually, I was just going to say one more thing. Do you believe in universal salvation, or do you hold more of a hope for universal salvation?
I have a hope for universal salvation.
Oh, okay. That's not my position, but that is a position that one is allowed to hold as a Catholic in good standing. So that's not problematic.
Father Bishop Barron.
Bishop Barron.
Yeah. I remember when I was in Catholic school, and we, of course, Catholic school, you have 4 years of religion classes, and religion, of course, is sometimes discussed in other classes as well, especially things like literature. We were in a religion class once when we were discussing hell, and one of our students said, sister, I don't believe that there's anyone in hell. And she said, that's okay. You can disbelieve that you can believe that there's no one in hell. This, however, you need to believe in hell. And remember, and she looked really directly at all of us kids and got, there's always a first time.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean by that.
And she basically, the way she was looking at us, like, you could be the one.
Oh, gosh.
You know what I mean?
Why are nuns always threatening?
Well, it was with a grin, but her point was well made. We don't know. We have not been given any, like absolute truth about what hell is, except that we know, it's a separation from God. Who's in hell? Is anyone in hell? I'm talking about, human beings. Are any human beings actually in hell?
The church has never declared any human being to be in hell.
That's correct.
Demons, yes, but never any human being. Although there have been a lot of testimonies from saints and testimonies from miraculous visions, like the one at Fatima. But the church has never made any dogmatic declaration about it.
Right. So there could be no one in hell, no human being in hell, no human soul in hell. Let's put it that way. No human soul in hell. And it's difficult for me to wrap my head around people being in hell, simply because no matter how horrible someone is, we know that frequently, these people are psychopaths or sociopaths. They don't have the tool set to be a good person. But I don't know that. Psychology is not something I know a lot about. But ultimately, it's up to God to judge, not for us. Which is one of the things that does bother me about CCP members and the like, these very conservative fundamentalist Christians. And there are fundamentalist Christians who, fundamentalist evangelical Christians who are nothing like the people we encounter. I always remember that when I kind of get annoyed or angry with our little group here.
Yeah, Christian Anarchist is a good example, isn't he? He's a fundamentalist Christian, not an arsehole.
Right, exactly. The thing is, they have no idea who's in hell. Only that's up to God. So to declare that someone's in hell, or even to declare that someone is going to hell, you are on the path to hell. You're flirting with blasphemy there, because you are taking upon yourself that which is God's.
Yeah.
And that is who is going to go to hell or not.
One of the things that I struggle to understand, actually there's two, but I'll talk about the other one after. And it's when I hear Christians saying they are saved. And I've read the Bible several times, and the way I've always understood it is that God is the judge of who is and who is not saved. It's not for man to decide.
Right. I agree with you. I find this business of people saying they're saved problematic. However, I think that some people are using that term in a different way. I think they mean it that they have come to Christ, and in that they are saved, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to heaven, that they're assured of their place in heaven. I'm not actually sure. That would be an interesting point to discuss with someone. What do you mean by being saved?
I think maybe in the way most Christians understand the term, it's how Catholics use the term in a state of grace. When one is technically in a state of grace, when they have no mortal sins on their soul, we believe that once you die, you're, if not directly into heaven, and of course, usually it's for people who have no venial sins. They don't even do sins unconsciously. But for most of us, that means we're going into purgatory, where souls will be prepared for an eternity in heaven. Whereas in Protestantism, I think what they mean is if they were to die at that moment, they would be going to heaven, as opposed to. But I don't think it would entail that if they couldn't commit apostasy, or they couldn't forsake their salvation, or they couldn't commit a sin so mortal it would ipso facto be a rejection of God.
Right. Yeah, but see, some things I've read lead me to believe that at least some people use the term saved as in they have come to Jesus. It doesn't mean they can't commit mortal sins. It doesn't mean that they risk their salvation, but it's there for them as long as they, walk the straight and narrow, so to speak. So that's an interesting question to me. What do different groups of Protestants, or even different individuals, mean by the term saved?
Well, I've heard people say once saved, always saved, which to me is, well, blaspheming. Yeah, well, I think it's blaspheming in a way, because, again, like I say, God is the judge.
Well, not only that, but you've read the Bible. Paul himself warns his Christian brothers, don't commit apostasy. The Jews have betrayed God, and if God wasn't afraid to cut them off the tree, why would he be afraid to remove you from the branches that he just attached onward? The implication being is, yeah, you are very much capable of committing apostasy. So I don't really know where that comes from.
They're completely hanging their hats on this one verse, which is, if they left us, they were never of us. That one.
Yeah, that verse is from the first letter of St. John, and what John is speaking about are the Gnostics who infiltrated the church. Mm-hmm. The Gnostics were not of the Universal Catholic Church, or the church that the apostles started and handed off to their successors, but rather they infiltrated the church, saying that they had secret knowledge, that they had a secret means of passing that knowledge on and getting people to salvation. And of course, what the church did was catch these heretics and they kicked them out, saying they don't even have apostolic power. That's what's going on here, and that's what I believe John is fairly clear on, especially if you understand things from the perspective of the early church. Even St. Irenaeus wrote against the Gnostic heretics, and that was the main opposition to the church early on.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that many Christians who are quoting verses, they don't have an idea of who Paul's writing to.
Yes.
Or the history involved in things. Like, most of them don't know what an Epicurean is. Most of them don't know what what's the word that you used? I cannot even remember. I know Gnostic.
Gnostic.
I almost said agnostic, and and the Gnostics were arguably cult-like in some ways. Like, they were just like Jesus's deity wasn't even a thing. Like, they were totally different. So I don't know. What was the other one? Arian? What was that other one?
Well, he did talk about Irenaeus, right?
Irenaeus,
yeah. Which is where.
Yeah.
Well, and we could go into the Pelagians and the Manichaeans and all sorts of fun people, but they have a very poor, if at all, understanding of church history, and almost zero understanding of church fathers. I think it was Veckel who once said that he didn't need to read the church fathers. Yeah. So, but that's the history. Even if you're a Protestant, you need to understand the history of the church. You need to understand what people were thinking back then. But what was
it that Cardinal John Henry Newman said? To look into church histories to cease being a Protestant.
Yes, I know, and that's happened to a lot of people. When they do look into church history. But oh crap, I forgot what I was going to say.
I'm sorry for derailing.
No,
you.
It's okay. That's a very nice quote.
Even looking at Luther, he's less of an evangelical and closer to Catholicism in some ways.
He once wrote
Yes, I was just going to say that some of the things, Luther was right in that the church was corrupt. No kidding. And one of the nuns that taught me religion once day joked, she said, it's too bad that Luther formed his own church. Otherwise, he'd probably be considered a saint.
That is actually, Robert Barron said something along the same lines, that if Luther had at least tried to reform the church from within, then we might have a Lutheran sect in the same way we have a Jesuit sect or a Augustine.
I was going to say that's basically what she meant. And by the way, all these people talk about how I have no religious education.
Yeah.
None
whatsoever.
No.
One of the amazing things about reading the church, about even reading Luther, is he held a lot of things that most Catholics would be happy to speak about. He had a very high view of the Virgin Mary. He thought she was a perpetual virgin until she died. He was not afraid to say she was not only the Queen of Heaven or an empress, but even greater than that. He thought that she was immaculately conceived, that she was not born in sin. And at the same time, he even wrote screeds against Anabaptists who refused to baptize their infant kids because they weren't, quote, of age. And he also attacked Zwingli for denying the real presence, or the fact that Jesus is bodily present within the Eucharist. He despite leaving the church, he still maintained a lot of beliefs that were, if not keeping in the Catholic tradition, they were at least very halfway.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting is that evangelicals typically have no clue, absolutely no clue, how different Reformed theology now is compared to back then. Yeah.
Right.
And that's my husband.
Oh.
It's not my dog, it's my husband.
I made a video talking to G-Man a few about a month or so ago, and in it I was talking about how the Old how the King James Bible was formed, about how it came about at a time with terrible political fighting over the throne of England.
Mm-hmm.
And that it is a very politicized book. And a lot of Christians have no idea about the history of that. I mean, that's an important thing to realize. Just a simple example is preceding the King James Bible. There was a movement to basically stop Catholics from preaching, because, of course, the old ways were you had some guy who stood at the front with an altar and spoke in a foreign language that most people didn't understand. And the service was done in Latin, and of course people didn't know Latin. So the Church of England created the Common Book of Prayer so that average Joes could read it and pray and that kind of thing, and they didn't need the priest anymore theoretically. And it was a creeping attempt to basically do away with the Catholic priests.
Wow, I am always amazed by how far you English are willing to go to be like no one else on the continent.
Yeah. Max,
Sorry.
Did they have missiles back in those days?
Did they have what? Sorry.
Catholic missiles. Those were ways of following the mass.
Is that like a guided version of a holy hand grenade?
Yeah, kind of.
It's like a little book that tells you how to do their like little chants where they go blah 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 blah, and you go.
It's more than that. It has the Bible passages for the day and things like that. But the missals were designed so that you could follow the Latin Mass. I remember when I was a kid, I had my little missal. You got your missals on your first Holy Communion.
You're like, what is he saying?
Kind of, yes.
The first, so the Roman Missal wasn't first released until the 1500s, and that was actually first published by Pope St. Pius V.
Ah, I see. Yeah, I wondered when that came in. So they would have had missals back. Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, it didn't come out of nowhere. What happened was in small enclaves of the church, they had missals in certain places. It just didn't become standardized until the late 1500s.
Right. Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that before. But yeah, because you would follow along. I rather enjoyed that, to follow along even when I was a little kid, to follow along with the Mass in your missal, because it told you what was going on.
I wish I grew up learning Latin. The only prayer I have learned right now in Latin is the Hail Mary. And that's one I had to constantly practice over and over again. I even put it as an MP3 file in my phone so I could practice it.
So real quick, since G-Man's got his knife sharpening at Jade and I'm going back and forth and stuff like that, since there's 4 Christians in here, can I ask something of all 4 of you?
Sure.
And I don't mean this in a condescending way, and we're not going to do this live on air.
Can I just point out that you're the 4th?
Yes.
Are you going to ask yourself questions?
Oh my god.
I love Cliff.
Okay,
so anyway.
Sorry.
So he's been like sharpening his knives coming after Jade and anybody else and stuff. And one of the things that, as much as I'm very angry with him, and I have definitely, I think, justified reasons to be angry with him, I'm trying not to hate and dislike him. And I feel like maybe instead of it is really hard not to get so frustrated and exasperated. And so one of the things that I would suggest is to pray for patience dealing with this person. And also maybe the people around him, because like if you're at all like me, Jade, like I end up getting questioned and grilled by people around him and instead of him. And so I guess maybe just for him, that maybe he can be put in a better place, because wherever he is right now, it's probably not so good. And I was thinking about just how angry I get a sense of anger. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that it's invoking some anger in me, and I don't want to reach a point of cruelty. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I have that problem myself.
My suggestion would be don't be angry at him, be angry at what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because that separates it, it compartmentalizes it. Effectively, you're not hating him, you hate. It's the equivalent of don't hate the person, hate the sin.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that would be the best way.
And I guess for us, like it's hard to know how to handle him. So like if you go quiet, does it make it worse? If you fight back, does it make it worse? And so I think just prayer for patience and wisdom on how to respond at this point, because it's getting to a point where I think it's starting to come to a head of some sort.
I agree. Max, do you want to hear some Latin? Are you still there?
I think.
Yeah. Sorry. I am not. I would love to hear some. I'm not opposed.
Okay, so I don't know how well you're going to hear this. So here we go. Tantum ergo sacramentum veneremur cenui, ad antiquum documentum novo ceda ricui, prestet fide supplementum sensum defectui. Genitori genitoque lauset jubilatio, salus honor virtus quoque sedet benedictio, prosidenti abutroque compersit laudatio. Amen.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that is from the Mass. That is from
I
the
wanted to do a
benediction.
hodie.
Oh, go for it.
Hodie Christus natus est, hodie Salvatora parui, hodie intera caunut angeli, Leta unto arcangeli, hodie exulta justi, dicentes gloria in excelsis Deo. Alleluia.
Well, as long as we're doing something, as long as we're reciting prayers in foreign languages, Chrysostonesi et necron donanto patnaso resiso nesi et necron donato panatos. And I really forget that. It's been a while since I've recited that in Arabic, so you'll have to forgive me.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, the only Latin I can think of is something that G-Man says, which is what was it? Dicere extremis rectum extremis.
So I don't know any foreign language songs, but I'm gonna rock a hymn for you. And I used to be in
go
choir,
for it.
but I lost my voice, so I can't sing anymore. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Under the shadow of thy throne, thy saints have dwelt secure. Sufficient thine arm alone. So that is a tongue twister. And our defense is sure. It goes on, but I love that one. Or God, our help in the ages past. It's a classic.
That's beautiful.
That is nice. Thanks.
I'm trying to remember the lyrics from it now, but there was a song I used to like when I was a child because we used to have to sing prayers at school and stuff. And, it was Lord of the Dance. I really enjoyed that song. It was like, dance, dance, wherever we may be. I am the Lord of the Dance, said he, and I'll be with you wherever you may be, and I'll be you. I can't remember what it is. I'll be the Lord of the Dance, said he. I can't remember. It was just very nice, It's a very, very long time, and we're talking 30 years ago that I was singing that.
So the English would used to worship Sean Patrick Flannery.
Oh no!
Sorry.
I know.
I mean, like I say, I liked songs, I just didn't believe in them.
Yeah.
And actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to sort of divert, but it keeps it on the same line. It's something I've never understood because I can't do it. When I hear the word faith, for me, faith is an illogical thing. If I don't believe anything on faith, I don't use faith. Now, when I say faith, I have faith in things, but I tend not to use it in this community because the word is loaded. It's like, oh, you have faith. Well, because this is, it's like the straw man. Oh, what's it? Atheism is a religion. Well, no, I don't have faith in a religious sense. I have confidence in my friends and my family and things like that. If I make a joke at Max, for example, I know that Max is a buddy and he's not going to take it offensively. He'll know, okay, Cliff's making a joke. I should take this as a joke. Things like that. I have confidence that's generated over years of interaction with people that they know what I'm like, things like that. And I know what they're like. And so I can make a reasonable judgment of, whether it's their trustworthiness or their likelihood to reciprocate, on something, etc. So I don't use faith, and I don't understand what faith is from a religious point of view.
Right. So I would say, when you use faith in, I believe you use it in the sense of trust. And that is what faith means in Greek. It means to trust. And when we say it in English... Wait. I know. Now, when I say it in a religion... Now, the reason I say trust in non-religious context and faith in a religious context, it's because I view faith as a kind of trust, but in application to supernatural claims. Whether or not that trust is a rational one to put it in is what's at debate here, or what is at conflict between people who either believe it is believe it is something that is warranted to trust in, or not warranted to trust in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's St. Paul actually says that we know faith works because, and he lists off a bunch. It's that chapter in Hebrews where he says faith is confidence in that which has been unseen, by which I don't mean to. By which he's not saying without any evidence, because he goes on to list a bunch of situations and scenarios in the Old Testament where a bunch of figures were able to accomplish great things because of faith, and he uses that as evidence. But when he says unseen, he's referring to the supernatural elements, which we don't have direct experiences with. He believes that the work of God is present within creation. He argues that in the first chapter of Romans, and that he deduced God from creation. But he's never someone who believes that faith isn't something we can see directly for ourselves, but we have a good rational basis to infer that it's there. And of course, when he speaks to other Hebrews, he's going to cite facts that they hold in common, but when he talks to Epicureans or Greek philosophers, he uses natural thinking and theology. So it all really depends on the scenario and what you use, but Paul never makes a point of saying, just do what I say. He always at least tries to give some kind of rationale for what he believes in, or why other people should believe as he does.
And still, I'm not. You see, I don't believe in the supernatural, so I don't have anything to relate to in that regards. I mean, for me, faith is an unreliable foundation for determining truth. It can be used to believe a true thing and a not true thing. If I use faith as a foundation, then I could believe in any god you might dismiss.
Faith
or
is not well, I mean, now you're taking faith to be some kind of methodology. No one uses trust as a method for determining what's worthy to believe and not worthy to believe, but rather faith is the trust you put into something after you believe something is warranted to believe, and you base that off of proper reasoning, some kind of evidence or argumentation, and that leads you to any particular belief you trust in, or any particular thing you trust in. For example, there are some people who are not worthy of your trust. You do not give it to them because they have shown themselves time and time again to be unreliable. And yet there are other people who, because you've had a long-standing set of interactions with, that have shown themselves time and time again to be dependable, that you're more apt to put your faith or your trust in. And now it doesn't mean that those people won't screw you over sometime in the future. Sometimes those things are unforeseeable.
Yeah.
But but from what you can gather, you are at least warranted in doing so. So I'd say that the mistake is believing that faith is a method. It's not. It's supposed to be the result.
But see, this is where I struggle, because I'm incapable of believing that. I mean, a justification for believing in God is my parents' pastor told me it was true and they wouldn't lie would they? Well, that's a justification, but it's not a very good one.
I'm not saying it is.
And I don't think that's a very good starting point. So I need to find the foundation. I need to find the foundation of the belief. And this is the reason why I'm in these discussions, because I like to know how other people found that foundation for their belief.
All right.
I have an idea that I'd like to try, if you don't mind, unless you want to go ahead next and I'll wait.
Oh, no, go ahead. I speak good enough in these things.
Okay. Hey, Cliff, how you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I actually have just a quick short thing. I actually have something on my video camera, the one I wear on my bicycle helmet.
Yeah.
I saw a squirrel in a tree, and I stopped and said hello to it, and I said, "Say hello to my friends," and you weren't here.
Well,
I upload that video.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
Well, it was you, Shadow Heathen,
oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
wow.
you're on the list.
Thank you. Well, I was going to try to use some scientific principles just because they're fun and easy to pull from the air. Mm-hmm. In child development, there's a description of object permanence, which is something that infants don't have, but then after a while, they can acquire the understanding that an object is permanently there, even if you can't see it.
Right.
So that, someone can walk into the other room and they'll be able to hear that person. So maybe then they won't cry if they can still hear. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's object permanence and object impermanence, right? So I would liken it to something of that nature, because before a baby knows that they're going to be attended to, they're going to cry when they're not seeing who they would receive the comfort from.
Yeah.
Because it's been, reinforced to them that for comfort, food, warmth, cleaning, whatever it is, that they can cry for that, and that need is going to be taken care of, which of course keeps them alive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that, the sound of crying just goes up a spine that just, to a mother, even to a child that's not their own, the sound of crying will still feel like a telephone signal, like going up their spine. Like, so I would liken it to something like that, because then let's say once when they're a toddler and they can be a bit manipulative and they know that they can draw that person towards them by crying, let's say just for crocodile tears for fun, when they're really okay. What was that?
The boy who cried wolf.
Well, that they're crying for attention, even though they don't really need the help. They just want the attention. And so let's say they're whimpering or something, and they know that they can, they're trying to elicit that same response. The trust, the value of the trust that's there is akin to that sensation of almost maybe of what it's like when some people pray, perhaps, because it definitely does feel like a parental, wailing or crying for help. A lot of times a prayer will be to have the faith to pray, but sometimes you even make a prayer to have the faith enough to pray.
Sorry, do you want to say that last bit again? I'm not quite understand.
Sometimes a person will pray to have the faith with which to pray.
That's very Kierkegaard, actually. God, I'm a believer. Please help me believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's nothing new. That's just the human nature to fall between this and that,
So effectively, you have doubts.
Oh, of course. But that can come from a very selfish point of view, because obviously if someone's praying for something that is because they want to see something turn out a certain way, that they're not having the outlook that they're comfortable with the idea that whatever happens is okay, thy will be done. Then it's a specific thing that they'll be asking for, and they'll be disgruntled, like they didn't win the lottery or whatever it is, if that doesn't come to pass.
I have joked in the past that praying takes balls, that you're basically telling an omnipotent, omniscient God that has a historical, if we look at the Bible, character for being a bit pissed off and bit of vengeance, that his plan is wrong and needs fixing in your favor.
You know what? It's funny because sometimes they sound to another person like that it's a command. And I remember I once made one of those as a comment in a prayer to the Catholic fusionists. That's what I call them now, I guess. Because I had, do you remember this? This was forever ago. I think I said, make haste to his heart, please, or something like that. Please make haste to this heart, Christ, please, or something like that. I don't know if you remember it or whatever, but that phrasing of make haste. That's a familiar one to someone who's Catholic. To someone who's not, that sounds like a command. Like, how dare you instruct? But it doesn't mean that when we say that way.
Well, I mean, there is regarding prayer, there was an excellent point made by St. Augustine of Hippo when he was actually criticized about it. Somebody asked, "Okay, why are you praying to God? If it's in His will, He's just going to do it anyway." And then Augustine's response is, "Well, maybe having me pray for the thing is in God's will too." So, because sure, God can will something on His own, but sometimes He likes willing through the acts of His creation as well. I believe the understanding is God likes working through secondary causes. That's why He created a universe.
And that it's to draw us closer to Him.
Exactly.
But that there is a vulnerability to the creator of the universe, and that's pretty extraordinary.
There was, I remember, a good way of understanding it is this. Once my mom asked me to take a table and lift it to the basement. It was this kid's table my cousin's son and daughter like sitting on, and we bring it upstairs to the kitchen. Now his son is like 2 years old. His name is Luca. He's turning 3. He stands up. He walks everywhere, and he wanted to help.
Second floor.
I'm sorry?
Does he live on the second floor?
My cousin Tony used to live on top of my dad's store.
Suzanne Vega.
It's a Suzanne Vega song. My name is Luca. I live on the second floor. Yeah.
No. Missed that reference. In any case, he wanted to help me move that little toy table. And you know what? Since I was going to do most of the work anyway, I figured it wouldn't hurt him. So I let him assist me. Could I have done that myself? Sure, but I want him to participate with me because I want to make him feel included. And even though the creator of the universe can will things to his own will on his own basis without any prayer or asking, sometimes he wills others to pray so he can bring it about. And I think that's so he can make us feel included in his plan as well. Because that's what God does. He draws us onto himself.
Now, for the Christians here, can I gotta ask a question? And it's, I'd rather you be honest than, because we got an audience, I want to make sure I got an accurate reading as opposed to politically correct reading, I suppose you could say. So when you pray, what do you pray for? Do you pray for, I'm guessing you pray for your family and friends and stuff like that. But when it comes to the douche nozzles like G-Man, do you pray to have patience so you can deal with the guy? Do you pray for him that he'll see the light and stop being a douche? I mean, what is it that you pray for?
With G-Man, I pray for patience and justice at the same time. Mercy, patience, and justice, all three at the same time.
Agreed.
Retribution.
Yep, that comes with the whole justice territory.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, it's not easy, but I would never use God to wish ill will towards G-Man.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Christi eleison, Christi eleison, Christi eleison. For those non-Greek speakers, that means God have mercy and Christ have mercy, respectfully.
Right.
I would like to point out that I already know this of you, that you wouldn't wish ill on G-Man. Pray for ill on G-Man. Now, I say this not because I know what the contents of your head, but I do know from my dealings with you content of your character. And I think as much as an arsehole, you might whisper on your breath, that guy's a fucking arsehole. But I can't possibly imagine that anybody here would actually wish ill on that guy. And when I say wish, I mean pray.
No, I've never prayed for anything bad to happen, but I get angry at him, and then I have to curb that.
I just remembered that life's already shitting on him pretty hard already.
See, for me, I mean, I look at these people, and Jason Burns, G-Man, etc., etc. I look at them with pity. That as shitty as my life can be sometimes, I can always look in the mirror and say, at least I'm not G-Man or Jason Burns or Veckel or whatever, you know. At least I'm not like them. You know,
Well,
it's like the thing, you know, G-Man's an idiot. Don't be like G-Man. That kind of thing. That's the way I look at it.
One of the things that I do struggle with is it's in Luke, I can't remember exactly where, but Jesus told a story about a Pharisee and a tax collector who went to the temple to pray, and that the Pharisee, as part of his prayer, opened up the prayer and said, Lord, I thank you that I'm not like other men, like that tax collector over there. And it gives me pause because there are times when I think to myself, you know, thank God I'm not like the Clown Car Posse. And then I says, wait a minute, am I thanking God that I'm not like that tax collector?
I think the lesson in there is quite simple and elegant. It's never good enough to not be like somebody you disregard as being a drag upon society or something of the like, even if it is justified, because the goal isn't to be good compared to your fellow man. It's to be perfect as Christ is perfect. And, well, I will say it's a lot easier to be in a position where you might not be like G-Man. It's not something you should settle for or be grateful for in itself. It's something. It's rather an aim at being a better version of yourself that you should strive for.
Well, you're not setting the bar very high.
Exactly.
If your goal is to not be like them.
What about the others here? Gretchen?
Which part would you like me to speak to?
What do you pray for?
Oh gosh. It's beyond words, so a lot of it is kind of hard to say. I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
I think he means not just in general, but like when you're in conflict, like we were talking about, we're in conflict with somebody.
Yeah. That obviously you pray for your friends and family and things like that. That's granted, okay. But when it comes to the likes of G-Man, do you pray that God will stop him being an idiot, or do you pray for patience to not be annoyed and angered by him being an idiot? You know, that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, I do ask that you know, whatever I'm tripping over, because I'm one of those that think that if something is getting on my nerves, it's probably reminding me of a part of myself that I'm really not too you know, that's probably a little immature, or there's some part of me that I see in that person that I'm embarrassed of or don't really care for so much of my own behavior that I'm being reminded of. And that would instead of that, and I don't want to say don't pray for patience, but I think of it in a different way, because to me, for patience is holding off or holding back anger, whereas instead I rather say to let that to let myself feel that in terms of understanding what I'm fearing, perhaps, or where I'm not trusting. I don't know if I'm explaining this clearly well enough. It's kind of hard, but like I say, it's very, except for prayers that I pray that are from the tradition that I do daily, whatever, to say that there's a language of prayer, not that it's glossolalia, but it's so much more of a sense of connectedness and desire for the Father's joy. I find really poor. I'm not really capable to describe what it is that's being communicated.
when I was in church, like in Baptist church, it was funny because they used to try to teach us how to pray, and one of the methods that they would teach you is when Jesus is confronted and said, Lord, how should we pray? And he does the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, that and that whole spiel. And then from that, people have kind of noticed that there was a pattern to how he prayed. And so some people call it, and I don't, this is kind of Protestant world, I guess, but they call it the ACTS form of praying. It's an acronym, and basically you start with adoration. You give praise to God and thanks for what he's done and the honor that he deserves. And then next you would confess, with any sin that you might, be dealing with in your life. And then you're asked to give thanksgiving and be thankful for what you're grateful for in the world. And then the last one is supplication, and that is praying for the needs of others and yourself. And so the purpose of prayer, as Kierkegaard puts it, is not to change the mind of God, but to change the nature of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Now, for me, as far as G-Man goes, I pray for patience. I pray for justice. I pray that he never hurts another human being. I pray that he will come to some understanding in his life, that he will become a better person. Don't have a lot of hope there, but I still pray for that.
Which I think is a shame, to be honest.
Yeah,
and I pray that
too.
I pray that he becomes Catholic.
As for the style of prayer, I quit using rote prayers for the most part a long time ago, and that's because I found that I was just, parroting them. I was so used to them. I can say the blessing before food so fast you wouldn't believe it. My cousin and I would bless the Lord, these gifts which we're about to receive, but he's Christ, amen. Okay, there we go. That's it. And we'd say it really fast so we could get to eating. And so that is meaningless to me. I basically just have a conversation with God. It's one-sided conversation, but that's okay. It's be like leaving a message for someone, your phone, and say, hey, here's what happened today, and yeah, I screwed this up. I didn't do that too well, and there are these people who need some help. If you can, give them some help, do it. I just basically have a conversation. Although I'm still very fond of the Hail Mary.
I got to tell you, I'm kind of chuckling inwardly here because you said something a few moments ago before you mentioned that part, which is you pray that G-Man won't hurt others. And I was thinking, well, that sounds like G-Man's answered prayer argument is a massive failure. And then I thought to myself, hang on, why don't you tell him that? Because maybe that will make him start to act like a human being instead of a jackass, which means that his answered prayer will be able to work. Your answered prayer would work. Does that make sense?
Not exactly.
Okay. His argument is if you pray, answered prayer works. Okay, so you've prayed that he won't hurt others. Well, he continues to hurt others, so the prayer is not being answered. However, if he thinks that maybe, it's almost like the performance anxiety, but the other way around. He effectively wants the prayer to work, so he'll stop being a jackass to other people and stop hurting them. I think this is a really interesting experiment to try, but I don't think it'll work.
Here's the thing about, here's what I'll say about the whole answered prayer thing. Cliff, I think you're echoing.
Am I?
Yeah. Can anyone? Oh, actually, I think it's better. Okay, it's all good. Maybe it was someone else. In any case, prayer is unfalsifiable, in that you don't know. No one knows whether it's working or not. I don't think you can know in principle. Like they try. I believe there was an institute that was very pro-faith. They actually tried a study where They had two sets of people. One who said who was being prayed for, and the other set was not being prayed for. And it turned out that the set who wasn't being prayed for actually did better in the long term. Yet, from what I know of Catholic theology, it's not only other people who are praying for you, but your patron saint that you got at baptism is praying for you. The angels in heaven and the saints are constantly praying for you. You might even have people who you don't know in your life who might be praying for you but aren't saying anything. It's so difficult because you can never really control the circumstances. So it's kind of like it's to use the soup can analogy. Yeah, so you don't even know if the can of soup that you're praying to is actually answering your prayers. If you tweak your soup can theology well enough. Prayer is the efficaciousness of prayer is something you have to take with the truth of the faith. It's something you have to accept as doctrine within it, rather than something you could have empirical evidence for one way or another. I think you could have good reason to believe in the religion and from there accept prayer, but I don't think you could reason from the effects of prayer to the religion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. I mean, I don't think answer prayer works. That's obviously I don't believe in a God to be doing the answering, shall we say?
And I don't believe prayers to cans of soup were.
I mean, the whole answers. The soup thing is just a parody to basically illustrate the fallacy in G-Man's argument.
Right.
But it's a parody, and we all know this, except for G-Man, who's an idiot and thinks,
Well, I did pray to a can of Campbell's Chunky once that I would open it up and find some good soup in there.
Did it work?
Heck yeah, that was some good soup.
Excellent. I wanted to say something about patron saint just because it's a mildly amusing thing. So my full name is Jade Janda Binder. Janda is actually a last name. It was my my father's mother's maiden name. And so when I went to be baptized, there was a bit of a fuss because you're supposed to have a saint's name. Or at least, when I was going, you're supposed to have a saint's name, right? But the priest where I was baptized said, Jade, Jude, what's the difference? So my patron saint is St. Jude.
Is Saint who, sorry?
St. Jude.
Oh, right.
St. Jude. I mean, there's only a letter difference, right?
Is he the
Jade, Jude,
patron
what's the
of
difference?
lost causes? Is that St.
Yeah,
Jude?
I know. Don't you love it? Oh, and to make it even more interesting, I was born on a Wednesday. Do you know the old saying? What is it? Monday's child is full of grace. Tuesday's child, something like that. Wednesday's child is full of woe. So I was born on a Wednesday. Yeah.
I was born on a Wednesday too, and feel me here. Deidre means child of woe.
I know.
That's my name.
Isn't that great? I know. So I'm born on a Wednesday, and my patron saint is St. Jude.
Oh, I was born on a Sunday. Neat.
Oh, screw you.
I actually didn't know. I had to go back through the calendar on my computer.
Oh, he's so perfect. He's born on Sunday.
I know.
Oh, but I was gonna say
I was born on a Tuesday.
Oh, nice. My patron saint was Saint John the Baptist, and I will say this in terms of my own personal testimony with faith. When the day before I went back to the church and ceased being an atheist, I earnestly tested an intercession to my patron saint that when I received at baptism, John the Baptist. I bowed down and said, look, I'm going to Mass tomorrow. My grandfather died. If you're really there, pray for me and see if God can't change my heart. Next day, during seeing the beauty of the procession and of the Mass, I was like, yep, I'm coming back. I'm converting.
My favorite, what was it? But my favorite god, as it were, is Tajimamori, a Japanese legendary figure from the Kofun era, and he is the god of sweets. The Emperor Sunin commanded Tajimamori to go and get him some magical fruit and he crossed the magical land, and after 10 years he returned with some branches of a tree with some fruit on it.
Oh, but we already knew that there was magical fruit. Beans, the magical fruit.
Yeah.
So apparently the patron saint of candy makers in Christianity is Saint Marcus of Alexandria. We have a saint for everything. Wow.
I know. It's kind of fun. When I don't know if the tradition still stands, but when I was a kid, when you went for your first Holy Communion, well, not only did you get your first missal, that was usually from your parents, but your godparents usually gave you a Book of the Saints. And we loved those things. And not for the reasons that people might think. Because children tend to be rather bloody-minded. And I can remember us sitting there in school going, oh my God, look at this one. He was burned alive by hot rocks. Oh no, look at this one. He was disemboweled. And we all loved, what was it, the saint? Oh dear, I can't remember. There's this wonderful picture of him like up against a tree, sort of looking off to heaven, filled with arrows.
Oh, Sebastian.
Yeah, Saint Sebastian. Thank you, Saint Sebastian. And I always wondered.
People think that's the gay one.
Yeah, I always wondered, if people really thought that tradition through very well. Because all us kids in Catholic school were busy looking for the goriest stuff in our books of the saints.
Sebastian never makes sense, right? Because he's like shot in the thigh, shot in he's
know.
just shot everywhere with arrows. Someone was either a bad aim or they wanted to torture him.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's always funny. So I don't know if they still do that business of giving out books of the saints, but I mean, the concept is really good, because the idea is that by relating to the saints and the struggles in their lives helps us with our lives, which is like, studying about Saint Anthony when we were in high school and his problems with lust and why he's the patron saint of adolescence. As we grow up, we have these struggles ourselves and various things like that. So the lives of the saints are instructive. But to give a bunch of 6 and 7-year-olds these what essentially were gory books.
This explains my Catholic cousins so much. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. I remember when they were my Catholic cousin, I want to say that we were both about 8 years old, 7 years old, and he had learned from the nuns about that Protestants were dirty traitors and that we left the church and we caused a war and killed a bunch of people and I was like, nah. I said you guys are idol worshippers. And he's like, take that back. No, we're not. And then we got into this pillow fight and we got in trouble because the pillow broke and then feathers flew everywhere.
Wow.
And it was literally like Protestant versus Catholic.
I've got to say, one of my favorite things to witness is G-Man screaming about how Catholics pray to Mary and statues, and that's idol worship. And then you get a video, then you'll get him caressing his Bible lovingly and holding it to the screen as then, yeah, this is my weapon and this is what I'm going to use to attack you and I love this thing. And it's like, that's fucking idol worship, you moron.
I know.
And it's weird because he thinks scripture is absolutely synonymous with God himself, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And in terms of gory stories about the saints, one of my favorite stories was hearing about Saint Sebastian getting martyred by having a ton of arrows shot at him. It's pretty it is pretty interesting how, looking back, how gory these stories can be. Although one of my favorite scriptures to cite in terms of ritual engagements with statues is I believe there's a chapter in the book of Numbers where Moses prays to God and says, hey, we have these serpents that are biting us and poisoning us. Is there something you can use to cure the venom? And God sends down a bronze statue of a snake, which the Israelites have to look at and engage with so as to heal their wounds. I mean, that's pretty much ritualistic interaction with an idol. Although the only difference is we have different ways of engaging with, well, not idols, but statues, which is by touching them, kissing them, etc. Oh, and by the way, an idol is something to be adored or worshipped in the same way God is, but Catholics don't do that. We just use statues as a means of honoring saints and, of course, worshiping God himself.
I tried explaining all this to Veckel a couple weeks ago, and it was... I probably could have done a better job of explaining it to the cinder block wall in my basement.
Well, one of my favorite...
Yeah, but hang on. Bear in mind that the wall probably has twice the IQ of Veckel.
All right, this is what I'd ask. So, Veckel, do you believe it's wrong to use something to symbolize Jesus? And if he says yes, I would ask him, so do you believe that the Eucharist or the communion wafer is just a symbol for Jesus?
Ooh, savage.
I don't know how Protestants could hold those two things in common together.
You know, being that I have like exposure to both worlds, I think about it this way. I think it like this. Protestants have their own version of quote unquote idol worship that might be legit, like something to worry about. And one of those things is personality cults within pastoral leadership. And that legit can be idol worship. I've witnessed. I mean, look at Mars Hill with gosh, what's his face? Mark, whatever his face is. He's that rude guy.
Mark Driscoll.
Driscoll, yeah. Mars Hill is a great example of a personality cult, and I say cult loosely, but a church that is foundation is based on the pastor that's preaching at it, and as soon as he's taken out of the keystone, the whole church crumbles. And I've seen this in local churches too. Like there's a local church called Shadow Mountain, and there's Pastor Jeremiah, and he writes the book. You know, like he's got like a ton of books, and he has a show called Turning Point, and he's a fairly known evangelical author. And the people like literally kiss the ground this guy walks on. Like Pastor Jeremiah said this, Pastor Jeremiah said this, Pastor Jeremiah said this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like really? And so it feels like a personality cult, you know? And it's not as bad as Driscoll, but it's definitely there. And I think Protestant churches tend to fall into that a lot. And these are like the less weird ones. Like they're not even like you can get a lot weirder in the Pentecostal churches and stuff. But I'm just thinking like, you know, even Slick. I mean, look at the influence Slick has in the personality cult that kind of forms around him sometimes. And it's just interesting.
There's a lot of these charismatic preachery types.
James White even. There's you know, like he's not that charismatic, James White, but there is definitely a personality cult that really likes him.
Well, I was going to mention just for a second here, break in. Look at the Crystal Cathedral. When Robert Schuller was alive and had all his faculties, that was a huge church. Had influence all over the world. But
where is it now?
Yeah, well, you know where it is now? It's owned by the Catholic Church.
That's right.
That's the seat of the Diocese of Orange.
Wait, the Crystal Cathedral is now Catholic?
Yeah, it's owned by the Catholic Church. Catholic Church bought it.
I did not know that. Wow.
At the time the Catholic Church bought it,
Winning.
It was basically a big white elephant. It was this huge building that nobody wanted to buy because it was too expensive. But the Catholic Church managed to make a deal, and they bought the Crystal Cathedral. So yeah, the Crystal Cathedral is now Catholic.
That's kind of funny.
It is.
I'm sorry.
That is kind of interesting.
I always love hearing stories of.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. It wasn't important.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say I kind of pleased me personally for a reason. Because the people at Crystal Cathedral were not really nice folks, and I have a few stories about that, interactions of friends of mine with them. But the one that was really interesting, so the Crystal Cathedral was, Robert Schuller got his start by preaching in a drive-in theater. Okay. So when they built the Crystal Cathedral, they had a drive-in area where people could pull up in their cars, they could wear their pajamas or whatever, and they could listen to his services. The thing is that, at least in the beginning, at a drive-in, drive-ins back in the day had individual speakers. You drove up, you grabbed the speaker, and you hooked it onto the window of your car, and then you rolled up the window so you didn't freeze to death. But what Schuller did instead was he had loudspeakers blasting out his sermons. Right next door, just about, to the Crystal Cathedral was an apartment complex. And this was an adult apartment complex at the time when it was legal to still have adult apartment complexes in California. That was made.
Still have a what? Sorry.
An adult. In other words, it was an apartment complex that only allowed adults, no children.
Oh right. Oh okay, got you right.
Yeah, it's not one where they held orgies all the time.
No.
That's different.
That was made illegal because apartment owners were turning everything into adult apartment complexes, and people with children could not find any place to stay. Plus, there were like civil rights problems. So anyway, that's illegal now in California, with the exception of senior housing. But anyway, so I had 3 friends who lived right across. Their apartment faced the Crystal Cathedral. One of my friends was the activities director for the adult complex. Because when they had these big complexes like that, I'm actually a little sorry that they're gone. I always thought that maybe they should change the law to allow a certain percentage of them, because there are people who, like work nights and things like that, and they don't want to be around a bunch of screaming kids. But back then in the day, like my friend was the activities director, and she would arrange various events like different parties and barbecues and things like that, because it was, we're single, let's mingle kind of thing. So she always worked Saturday nights. And yet bright and early on Sunday morning, no matter what they did, no matter what they put up against the windows, no matter the drapes they put up, they were blasted awake by Robert Schuller every Sunday morning. The entire complex was subjected to Robert Schuller every Sunday morning. Not only the entire complex, but people nearby were subjected to Robert Schuller every night. My friends, of course, were all lesbians and really didn't appreciate listening to Robert Schuller every Sunday morning. Mm-hmm. But complaints went nowhere because the Crystal Cathedral didn't care. They made it very clear they didn't care. And as for the cities involved, this was actually on the city line, I think, between... My friends were in Anaheim. The Crystal Cathedral was in Garden Grove, I think. I almost said Garbage Grove.
Oh, Crystal Cathedral.
Yes. And...
Yeah.
But they didn't care. The cities didn't care because, religion. It's a Christian church. We don't care. We don't care if they're disturbing the peace. Those people were not very nice. Yes, good old Garbage Grove. And I think where you live, isn't that Cockroach Mesa?
Shut up, Jade.
Given the Christian right in America, if it was a Christian church, they'd be like, "Yeah, we're not going to do anything." But I bet if it was
Muslims
and the anti prayer, they'd be losing.
Well, especially in very conservative Orange County. In some other counties, somebody might have done something about disturbing the peace, but in Orange County, no way, no way. So, Jackie, hello.
Hi. I live in Orange County.
Good for you.
I live in San Diego. We're better than you.
Probably. I don't care.
We're poorer.
I remember I live in low income housing. So.
Yeah, we're lucky.
Oh yeah, you got a good place.
Remember, I live
we
in a
pay
converted car.
about $1,300 a month for rent on a 1-bedroom here. The market value on this place is closer to $1,900.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even want to tell you guys what we paid for our house in the mountains. We got really lucky there.
I'm guessing you had a much easier time finding housing when you were back in the South.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I shared a 4-bedroom house with 3 other people, and in total it was like 1,600. But we were splitting that between 4.
Yeah, my 3-bedroom duplex in Ames, where I used to live, like when I met her, was about $1,200 a month between 3 people. It's a nice place.
Well, that's California for you.
Well, I mean, it could be worse. You could be living in British Columbia over here, and not British Columbia, in Vancouver over here. The housing prices are just amazingly large.
Are they worse than in the Bay Area? Because the Bay Area is pretty bad.
Okay, let's see.
In the Bay Area, you can pay over $3,000 for a tiny little studio.
Yeah.
Bay Area is off the chain ridiculous.
Oh, and
Is this a bad time to tell everybody about my 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that I paid less than $100,000 for?
Fuck it up, Jim.
I was gonna mention I did post about this. I think I don't remember where, but whatever. In the Bay Area, they are now building adult dorms.
So a 4-bed. So if you want to rent a 4-bedroom house, 2,610 feet squared, that costs about $5,000 per month.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Okay, but
That's cheaper than the Bay
size
Area.
that you're really supposed to compare is 2-bedroom.
Oh, right, that is true.
There was an amusing advert on the TV in the UK some years ago for HSBC, and it was a golfer, and there's people playing golf, and a guy gets a hole-in-one, and the audio says that in wherever it was in the Far East, certain places, I think it was Japan. It was Japan actually. So in Tokyo, if you get a hole-in-one, you're expected to buy your fellow players expensive gifts. Then there's a spiel about how to save money with their bank. And then sort of the end is he gets another hole-in-one, and they're all like congratulating him, and of course, yeah. But in Tokyo, in certain areas, the land is so expensive that if you got the biggest denomination note you can get, which is probably, I think it was something like $2,000 or something like that, a note. So like a paper, dollar note kind of thing.
You mean yen?
No. I can't remember. It was a really expensive note. It's the most expensive note they have. Okay, whatever it is, it's a lot of money. If you lay it on the ground is worth more than the note. The house prices in certain areas of Tokyo are so expensive, and the whole point, the advert was actually misleading, because of course, if you can afford to go to a golf course, because land is so expensive that golf course membership is hugely expensive, and only rich people who can afford to give expensive gifts to their fellow competitors if they get the hole-in-one.
By the way, 2 bedrooms in Vancouver, it can range on average, it's anywhere from like $1,750 to $2,000.
That's actually less than Orange County is.
Yeah,
and it's way less than the Bay Area.
This is all dumb. You guys voluntarily live in an expensive food desert.
Hey.
Not a food desert.
There are reasons why I live here, and we could go on and on about it.
Those guys.
But
It's not a food desert.
It
What are you
didn't.
talking about?
It didn't start this bad in San Diego. Like when I first got married, a 2-bedroom apartment was $600 a month. Now it's like $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Also,
And I'd like to point out, I was just going to say where I live, which is not in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's just south of there in the Monterey Bay Area. It's very expensive here too. But believe me, this isn't a food desert. This is where your food comes from.
Cerberus upset more people attacking California than he did God. Well, actually, he didn't, or anyone else
Okay,
attacking God.
but let me
I'm kidding, of course.
I know.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
No, I was born and raised here, so this is kind of my hometown. I did not, like, quote, choose to live here. So.
Ditto.
So to be fair, like when Jackie, like when she went shopping in an Iowa grocery store for the first time, she was kind of shocked at how cheap the dairy products were.
Just looked it up in London. The average house price is $816,000. The equivalent of that. That's the average house price.
$816,000 for where now?
For a home.
Where?
In London.
Yeah, I believe it. London's fucking ridiculous.
That's exactly why I don't live in London.
All right, kids.
There's a lot of reasons why I don't live. Okay, go ahead.
Scallywags and all of those other people. Steve McRae dissenters.
Trolls.
Except for Jade. Jade's our double.
Well, I'd like to point out that we are the great debate community. We're the proper great debate community.
That's right. We got theists. We've got atheists. It's raining cats and dogs. We're breaking bread together, hanging out. It's upsetting G-Man. It's great.
Can we be the improper great debate community? It sounds edgier.
No, I'm fed up of having, this idea that there's the GDC G+ group and that's the great debate community. No, we are the great debate community. That's the G+ group that's got that name. We
are the
We're a cesspool. We've always been a cesspool. Get used to it.
Yeah, including the people who are in the GDC group, we are the whole great debate community.
So that being said, Moderate C Word is a community. It's an alternative community. And we are not perfect. We are not highbrow. We are not.
We don't take ourselves seriously.
I don't take myself too seriously. Hopefully you guys don't either. But we do try to connect here and there, and sometimes we kick the heck out of each other. But either way, one of the things that, like, when I look at this community that we're part of, and this is like a more minute part of the community. There's like only 100 members, but when I look at it, I look at people that are willing to cross bridges and walk over from one tribe to another and break bread, and I think that's important.
I think honesty is the part that I enjoy. Even if we disagree, we can at least be honest with each other.
Yeah.
It's not a cult.
However, I was going to institute the dueling section, where we can get together with swords and pistols and settle our differences. Like,
I'll win.
Yeah.
That would be kind of cool to have a dueling section, have like a section where we duel and be like, Sean Cahill challenges Maximus to a duel over Catholicism. Go!
Sean's weird.
Oh, Sean's annoying. See, some time ago.
Sorry, Jade, do you want to move a bit closer to the mic?
Okay, some time ago, Sean was asking me a whole bunch of questions, and I would answer them, but he wouldn't quit, and he didn't like my answers. So I quit. I quit responding, and then he started following me from different, post to different posts wherever I commented, and continuing to ask me questions. So I finally just quit. Just quit responding to him altogether. But he's just annoying as fuck.
Yeah, the whole chasing you down and making you demand to answer a question on something that's not related. I deleted one of those. I'm like, look, I'll answer you on your stupid one that's related finally, but I'm not going to be derailing because you decided to chase me down.
Well,
He's been doing that exact same thing to me.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
been
over the last couple of weeks.
target now.
He's been trying to do it with me to say for me to decide whether Catholics are Christians. I mean, like,
Yeah, it's really weird, and this has been going on for a couple of years now that I've noticed it. Like, Sean is even more triggered by Catholics than he is atheists or anti-theists. Like, he does not like Catholics for some reason.
And he doesn't like your answers. That's the worst part. It's like, I've answered you. What do you want? Blood?
He's
Well,
got
yeah,
this
maybe.
thing right now that he's posting dodged questions. So if he feels like you're not answering a question, whether it's an atheist or a Catholic, he's going to post it again. And he's got the little matrix dodge guy. So you
Sean,
can check that out and see if there's a question that you'd like to answer.
Sean, if you're watching this right now, or if you happen to watch it in the future, I'm not dodging your questions. I stopped answering because it's fucking annoying.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't want to talk to you because you're a dumbass.
Well, he posted something today about not getting answers from atheists. That atheists were dodging his questions or something like that. Well, that's because atheists are getting sick and tired of your incessant questioning too.
Yeah.
No, correction. We've been tired of his questioning for years. We see through his shit now.
The thing that bothers me is I offered him a discussion on my channel. Just have a discussion. He's welcome to mirror it if he wishes. And just have a discussion, but he needs a moderator for some reason. And I'm not interested in a moderated debate, but he just I don't know, maybe he's afraid I'm going to talk over him and lambast him or something.
Are you still going to do that thing with Hannah? Are you going to have her moderate, or is he not okay with that because she's an evil atheist?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't gone to him about it. I mean, we've talked about it, and I mean, this is a couple of months ago now. I just haven't got around to it. I've had other stuff to deal with and whatever.
Well, you know what you could do, Cliff? You could say, okay, we'll have a moderator, and pick a moderator who will just walk away after the discussion starts.
Yeah.
Okay. Good luck, guys. Whatever. Just, yeah.
I mean, like I say, as I said before, my purpose in this community, I don't believe in God. I don't understand why the people do. I met Jason Burns on the street, and I'd never come across someone who believed in things like that before. And so it's like, okay, I don't believe this stuff. Why do these people believe this? And there's a group of people who are interested in having discussions. So that was it. And it's my equivalent to going to the pub and having a chat with buddies. And, even though I disagree with faith positions, I don't consider people my enemy, or I don't think you're idiots, or to quote G-Man, what's the faith? What's the basis of your morality? Well, you behave in a moral way, and that's what I appreciate. Well,
and those of
I
us
only
here
expect you to justify why you believe for
sorry.
yourself,
Flag.
not why I should believe. And if you want to tell me why they think I should believe, then there you go. Fair enough. That's good fun.
I think this is the part where we let Spackle finish her closing statement.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Except for she's now gone for a walk, and
So I work really early nowadays. So my weekend shifted like one over. So like my Friday is actually Saturday, and my Saturday is Sunday, and my Sunday is Monday. So that being said, I have to wake up early tomorrow, and so it's 10, and so I need to start settling down. And I notice when I chatter too much later than 10, my brain just keeps me up. So I need to start winding down. Thank you so much for indulging us every week when you guys join. It does cheer me up to see faces, sometimes new, sometimes old. And I like that we're steadily having a decent mix of both theists and atheists constantly. I like that. I like not having all one way or the other. And so I appreciate people's willingness to want to reach across these tribal boundaries and be able to talk in some way. And some of what we say is goofy, and some of what we say serious, and to be able to do that flip-flop back and forth depending on where things lead us. I appreciate people's just willing to participate, because I don't think we're necessarily the most highbrow format per se, and we can vary from kind of like, you know, TST style to you know, an actual theological discussion to
Insomnia Shuffle. Oh wait, that's worse.
To it, like, yeah, and sometimes we'll have like enough Insomnia Shuffle members where it does feel a little bit like one, but there's enough variance and stuff where I think I do appreciate that people participate. One of the things that I did was I did dedicate this one to Vincent. If you know Vincent, you probably know that he's a good man. So Vincent is a very loyal, faithful guy who's extremely supportive, and I've only known him to be somebody that would give you the shirt off his own back. So I would appreciate if anybody, if something tickled you and made you giggle today, if you know, value community, if you could kick Vincent $1 or $2, we'd really appreciate it, because he's been going through a hard time financially, and he's been trying to catch up with things, and he's recently gone through some attacks in the community that I definitely disagree with. So I would appreciate any support that you could throw his way. And I'm gonna wrap this up. So G-Man, we will pray for you. We'll pray for our patients. We'll pray that I will pray, particularly that I don't get too mean, because there is a sense of justice and wanting to fight for other people that gets triggered in me. And my meanness isn't based on as much internal meanness for myself, but as wanting to defend somebody that's hurt, and wanting to defend and prevent harm. And so that's probably some of my own baggage coming into play, because I want to protect people, and I played the lower kid where I couldn't protect people. My siblings took the brunt of a lot of bad stuff in my family. So I'm sure there's some sort of psychological reason why I get enraged over injustice and how I perceive, and I kind of have my moral outrage moments. But one thing I need to do is reel that in to some degree. And so I definitely think it would be more beneficial for us, instead of saying, oh, at least I'm not G-Man, as Jim was talking about, you know, how at least I'm not that tax collector. Maybe just pray for somebody to maybe show him a different way. And so I know that those of us who are Christian tend to veer that way. And I appreciate the secularists here that do tolerate our bantering when we talk about faith here and there. So anyway, that being said, I hope you have a good night and a safe, happy weekend. Happy Mother's Day to anybody that's a mother. And thank your mom for bearing with you during some of your most embarrassing moments. Okay. All right. Have a good day.